And the guy standing behind all this is our main hero. He is, as always, exhausted by this soul-crushing routine. Because the VTuber agency he joined, Dengarasu, seems to be a complete mess there. He looks at his colleague A in games he is a total zero, but somehow insanely popular. Suddenly a message sounded on his screen. It completely caught him by surprise. The letter from Katsuranishi is too official, and dry. He politely and reservedly asks for a meeting. At the other end of the line is his manager Katsuranishi Ritsu. A smile seemed never to have appeared on her face. Our guy, as always a pro, puts on the headset, politely agrees to the call, and when she asked how he was doing, he just burst out laughing and admitted he is a complete newbie. Then the manager remembered her colleague, a certain A, and says that he is doing great. Her full name is Rieka Hanabi. Remember this name, people. Here is Rieka, a punk rock VTuber who simply blows everyone away and already has over 32,000 subscribers. Her entire brand is essentially a loud, full-on "I'm quitting everything." She is a true artist. Her crazy energy attracts views, but a crowd of trolls quickly appears in the chat. But during the call, the manager firmly tells him, "Don't worry about the haters, there's a team for that." Our guy just calmly nods and, as if nothing happened, says that such things don't bother him at all. He explained it was precisely his iron nerves that were the main reason the agency hired him in the first place. Because, plot twist, the former male VTuber of their company died tragically. This case was hit by a merciless storm of slander and hatred from anonymous crowds on the internet. Those so-called unicorns who always lost their heads whenever he interacted with female VTubers. You know, before our guy Dengarasu arrived, the agency was purely female. Any collaboration instantly turned into a real minefield. So every move of our guy, who now calls himself Yamanashi Batten, is a matter of life or death. His manager Katsuranishi insists that they are already taking concrete steps to deal with the wave of criticism, and they do it so convincingly that it's hard not to believe. She promises they won't rush, they will slowly lead the public to accept him, a typical corporate non-plan. And our guy doesn't worry about spirit at all. He has a completely different plan in mind. I told her that her slow, gradual approach was probably already too late and unlikely to work. He frankly says that he is a complete novice in streaming and corporate marketing, but he is completely confident in his professional skills and knows that he will definitely win this battle. Because right now his VTuber persona is rapidly falling into the abyss, and if he doesn't get to work, everything is lost. With one raised finger, he interrupts her, immediately ready to put forward his own idea. And he slyly smiles and tells her that he has one little trick he wants to try. Katsuranishi is completely confused, totally unprepared for this sudden show of initiative. Without saying a word, he pressed start streaming and plunged headfirst into the chat swarming with trolls. On the screen appears his avatar Yamanashi Batten, who cheerfully greets the night audience. A huge crowd of 23 viewers watches intently, greets each of them. Then with a shining smile, he announces that tonight, as promised on Twitter, he is launching a completely new project. Honestly, he calls it a full reboot of his channel, and the chat instantly buzzed with curiosity. Leaning towards the microphone, he began passionately recounting all the details of his grand plan to save the channel. It seems to be a cooking stream, and with that banal graphics, let's cook. The chat simply exploded into chaos. Everyone suddenly was shocked by this strange turn. The chat immediately asks if he is really in the kitchen, and Batten's avatar just smiles, like a quiet confirmation. And the shot of his real slippers on the floor clearly proves that he is not joking. Here he is, our guy, standing in a completely real, impeccably clean kitchen with his streaming equipment. The viewers are already skeptically suspicious, asking if this can even be called a remake, and he partially agrees. But Botin, now in a virtual apron, insists food content is a powerful genre, from ASMR to tutorials. He puts down the cutting board and, smiling, promises that what happens next will change their minds. Even before he thunderously throws a giant scaly monster limb right onto the counter. And the chat just goes crazy, demanding to know what is this even. He pauses, lets the tension hang in the air, and utters only one ominous phrase. Then, slyly smiling, he reveals, this is a dungeon ingredient. For those who are confused, a dungeon is real deadly traps filled with monsters where you can snatch rare trophies and master new skills. The viewers are stunned and wonder how he managed to get such an expensive item for the stream. But Barton calmly corrected them, saying he didn't buy this item at all. Because he hunted it himself. In fact, he is a professional researcher. Again, this sensation throws the chat into frenzy. Everyone understands that he is a pro and probably well off. The flashback shows, since high school he was a professional dungeon seeker and earned money from it. For a traveler, preparing monster meat is a trifle, but the real problem was how to deliver it to people. Because he couldn't just open a restaurant or deliver the goods, so he froze in complete despair until. And then it dawned on him, if you can't find a VTuber for a collab, become a VTuber yourself. And so, before the stunned audience, he explained how he ended up right here. Batten asks if it would be fun to cook a monster, and the chat poll loudly responds everyone is totally for it. One viewer even exclaimed, "Why didn't you do this from the very beginning?" Botan just shrugged, a valid remark. He admits that he held back, the topic was too tense, and that's exactly what makes the chat even crazier. The viewers tell him, "You don't need any weird tricks if this is your usual style," and he seems to agree. When he realized it was time to stop the chatter, he finally got down to business. And with a confident smile, he officially launches his segment, "Let Us Cooking, a True Showman." He raises the peace sign and sincerely promises all viewers a serious portion of delicious food. But first he has to toss a tiny lord drop to that monster they are about to eat. This, he says, is the claw of a tyrannical crayfish, found in the freshwater part of the dungeon. Simply put, a crayfish the size of a bear, as powerful as a tank, that just tore the chat apart. The audience is now gripped with horror. People whisper and ask, why is he risking his own life for this if orc meat is perfectly fine? He reads the comments and thinks to himself, about 80 pure anxiety and the remaining 20 stunned amazement. Button waved it off, saying orc meat is a well-known brand, but this turned out much stronger and it terrified his fans. Suddenly, a new viewer appears in the chat, a complete newcomer to this channel. This person, also a professional researcher, asks with interest if this is the crayfish that shoots jets of water under high pressure. Our guy is insanely excited and, as if ringing ding ding ding, confirms that they are 100% right. Then he, not hiding his irritation, explains to the rest of the confused chat that this damn crayfish is really a tough mob. And as soon as it circles near the water, it becomes a bit dangerous, because it can shoot a water cutter, an attack so powerful that it cleanly cuts through wood. While the whole chat was gripped by panic, Botan just laughs, not at all worried about the deadly threat. The constant cool guy in the chat is simply stunned. He understands that the streamer is hunting creatures that supposedly cannot be killed. Another viewer in the chat threw the experts a simple request. Please say clearly, how cool is this guy really? The verdict is simple. If Barton caught that crayfish on his own, then he is without any doubt one of the best researchers in the entire country. We are talking about the real top, a pro who lives on a completely different level than everyone else. Honestly, even a whole squad of those top guys would be completely destroyed by this monster. Instant you dead screen. Then Botan says that this Tarrant crayfish is a mid-level underground monster that everyone fears and avoids as if it were a real plague. Look, most researchers are too cautious. They only follow proven paths and avoid any real danger. But this creature is like the very reaper of the dungeon, a monster you must flee from at any cost. So he, step by step, lays out his next logical move before the stunned listeners. This meat is so rare that you can only get it by hiring an elite researcher, and they ask an astronomical fee for it. The self-satisfied smile on his face says it all. He holds the most coveted and unattainable prize. This stream will simply crush all the haters and their bad reviews to dust. He even teases, says that other channels prepare only boring stuff like orc meat, pure snooze. And then he pulls out a knife as long as a short sword, finally ready to get to work. He, like a true pro, carefully studies the blade, completely in his element, because the real show is starting. Although this is an ingredient from the dungeon, it adds one small but noticeable detail to the class. This is a drop item, so the meat inside is perfectly preserved and tightly packed. With a single effortless movement, he cuts through the shell. Perfect meat is revealed, and the entire chat instantly crashes. He says it's so fresh that it can be eaten raw, like sashimi, and a real panic erupts in the comments. Viewers go crazy, shouting that it's fake, and Botan has no idea what he just said wrong. Botan glanced at the chat. It was buzzing much louder than he expected, and he instantly felt their surprise. He simply turns his back, knife in hand, and throws out that he has nothing to say about this whole sashimi story. His avatar, with a smug smile, just says no comment, and the chat harshly mocks him for running away instead of explaining. He essentially says, this is too complicated for their little brains, so they should just accept it as a fact, a true masterclass in audience domination. Then he clarifies that most asterisk explorers can probably do it, and the chat immediately latches onto that probably. Someone in the chat just blurts out, wait, are you now despising all of humanity? An older viewer shook his head. Since dungeons appeared, the laws of physics have been a bit topsy-turvy anyway. Suddenly, another professional researcher jumps in and says, no, almost no one can do that, and the chat immediately emphasizes that there is disagreement among experts. Completely ignoring the conversation about the meaning of life that he just raised himself, Botan smiles and decides it's time to choose the menu. This is too much for one time, so he decides to eat only half and save the rest for another day. His face instantly froze into a deadly serious mask as he thought about how to prepare this mythical dish. He weighs the options. Sashimi definitely, something grilled in the classic style. Soup will perfectly finish everything, and the chat meanwhile showers praise. Then, smiling confidently, he declared, I have decided. He raises 3 fingers and, as if putting a full stop, announces the final menu. Sashimi, grilled dishes, and miso soup, a full 3-course meal. This portion of sashimi was cut into such huge pieces that they look like some giant sweet shrimp, while and here is the fried part, just claw meat thrown straight onto the tabletop stove to impress to the maximum. And with the miso soup, he does not fuss, throws all the leftovers in there, and sincerely believes that an incredible broth will come out. The menu is finally approved. He grabs his tools and announces, "It's time for the main event, the culinary show." First, he goes to the sink and fills the pot with water for the miso soup. Then he puts it on the stove and lights the burner. While the water for the soup heats up, Botan takes on the sashimi movements confident, like a true pro, and his skill with a knife is absolutely flawless. He slides through the meat and the chat watches in admiration. Botan's avatar smiles, basking in waves of praise for his unexpectedly clean technique. And now the sashimi is ready. On the plate lie 4 huge, perfectly beautiful slices that beckon. These scraps immediately fly into the cauldron after all. Such divine ingredients are not thrown away. Next on the menu grill, the main meat of the claw sizzles appetizingly over the fire. He is a true whirlwind in motion. Tossing vegetables and slicing onions like a chef on a hibachi, he has an incredible style. The 3-course meal of the tyrannical crayfish is over, and the chat simply explodes with hype. Botan, confident in himself, takes a deep breath and throws a small warning to viewers at home. Listen, this is not an ordinary crayfish. The rule "don't eat it raw" does not apply here. His avatar panics a little, imagining how kids might try this at home. He is a very responsible content creator. He is tired of hearing constant complaints about his big debut, so he finally decides to just eat that damn thing. In front of the camera, he sets the feast and asks the stunned viewers to say their last word. Sashimi looks so appetizing that the whole chat seems to be begging to taste it through the screen. Meanwhile, the grilled claw is shining. The viewers shout in unison, "It can't be that it tastes bad." Even soup is now called food terrorism, but Botan assures the taste is guaranteed to be exquisite. Then he boldly admits that he got all the food from the mid-level dungeon just to show off even more. A brief dungeonology lesson: the deeper you dive, the more valuable the loot, and to make you understand, orc meat from the upper layer is already considered a real delicacy, on par with signature pork. Meanwhile, another VTuber snacking watches the stream and says directly, "Botan is just showing off in front of everyone." And he was not wrong. Botan's viewer count just skyrocketed, over 68,000 people. The number kept growing, and another streamer just froze from the sudden explosion. He thought that Botan's colleagues probably told about it, but never thought it would spread so insanely. Somewhere else, a VTuber with pigtails laughs with uncontrollable joy, bathing in the chaos she helped create. And suddenly she bursts into the chat, confirms it, and shouts that of course she will share such a crazy thing with the whole world. A quick analysis shows how the viral chain rushes from colleagues to fans, spreading throughout the explorer community and eventually breaking into the trends. Then another colleague, Miko, can't hold back and admits she also shared it primarily to make everyone jealous with her food. A true hero. Botan grabbed his phone and saw in horror. Because of food terrorism, he ended up in the trends, a label he never asked for. He is truly panicked. He was supposed to stay away from other VTubers to avoid causing drama. It turns out his biggest fear is not monsters, but a huge influx of new viewers, and he has no idea how to handle it. He stands frozen, completely stunned, while colleagues' comments flood the chat and blow his mind. This. These two essentially tell him, "Stop worrying and let us help." One is boiling with hype. The other gently whispers, "Any moment now, dear." For a moment, Botan is genuinely touched by their chaotic support, although it gives him an aneurysm. But in his head, their support looks more like an attack, as if they are throwing fireballs right in his face. But in reality, what torments him is not fame. He is suffocated by soulless legal wrangling over evaluating items from dungeons. He decided to postpone his problems, picked up his food, and declared that he would deal with Miko later. Miko is by no means thrilled. He folds his hands to finally start eating, while colleagues mercilessly laugh at him for ignoring them in the chat. And here he finally takes a piece of sashimi in his hands, ready to start the long-awaited tasting. But before he starts eating, he carefully places the claw on the grill and says that its shell is so hard that it needs to be cooked slowly. Miko says the shell is incredibly hard and insanely heat-resistant, so it needs to be cooked slowly over low heat. The grill is ready, and Botan, smiling, announces that while they wait, he will take on the sashimi. He lifts a huge, shiny piece of crab meat, ready for the first bite. He doesn't need any sauce. And here the axe comes down. This is the moment of truth for the legendary ingredient from the dungeon. His eyes instantly widen from pure, genuine shock. The taste is unreal. He freezes for several full seconds, and his entire audience falls silent, hanging in painful anticipation. The reaction explodes instantly. He blushes to his ears and starts drooling. The taste completely shuts down his brain. His avatar literally splits in half and explodes. Delicious, and that was a perfectly accurate reaction. He clenches his teeth, trying to pull himself together, but the chat storms him with messages demanding an immediate description of the taste. Botan says, "Imagine that sweet shrimp and crab had a child who lifts weights and is also an ester ingredient." To take this to a new level, he lightly squeezes fresh kabasu, and the flavor bursts even brighter. This drives his colleague with braids into hysteria. She explodes in the chat, screams, and demands her piece. This piece with a citrus hint lifts him to the heavens again, while he skillfully ignores his friends. He says even just sashimi and that's already 10 out of 10, a true flex of the highest grade. But the show is not over yet. He again intently looks at the paw, perfectly sizzling on the grill. The viewers are already sure. He doesn't even read their comments, he just raises his food above them and acts arrogantly. With a truly sinister smile, Botan says he is in a great mood. He is just showing off in front of everyone. For the next dish, he theatrically pulls out a small bottle of soy sauce and pours it directly onto the claw heated to red hot, and it instantly disappears in clouds of steam. This incredible sound and smell of burnt soy sauce spread through the air and drive the chat crazy. Meanwhile in the chat, his colleagues unleash a real full-scale war who will grab the first collab. Botan notices nothing around. He shines with happiness over his crayfish steak, like a child on Christmas morning. He bites off a huge piece of perfectly roasted meaty claw, holding his breath in anticipation of a flavor explosion, and it just completely overwhelms him. He sits in the chair speechless from pure genuine bliss. His colleague with braids just exploded in the chat with a real hysterics and stubbornly demands a collab. Without batting an eye, our guy moves on to the last dish, miso soup. He takes one single cautious sip and instantly realizes it is incredibly tasty. He tries to calm his overloaded taste receptors with the soup, but it all spectacularly fails. Because this rich broth seems to ignite his appetite, driving it to even higher speeds. This dude is simply lost in pure, sincere euphoria from the food, a true, beautiful sight. And suddenly the sincere truth surfaced, why he even became a VTuber. He passionately dreamed that his hero, an explorer named Jin Sakai, would try his dungeon cuisine. He knows to turn this dream into reality, he needs to promote himself much more on the platform. Right now Miko is already quite irritated by his silence in the chat. Her rage boils. He ignores her, and we see her real name, Hinami Akari. Her avatar pouted and fiercely swore that he would pay for this during their inevitable collab. Here is Hinami herself. She is 19, and her virtual name seems to be Rika Hinabi. Lying in bed, she grumbles. He could have at least warned his colleagues before this stunt. Botan suddenly shivered from the cold, as if sensing a storm about to crash down on him. Because Hinami decided to take matters into her own hands, her phone is already ringing. The next morning in Botan's apartment, the phone did not stop. Calls came one after another. He wakes up amid a storm of notifications and freezes, absolutely stunned by what he sees. Overnight, the post about his stream with crabs exploded across the network. Messages poured endlessly. His followers suddenly soared to an astonishing 150,000, and on Twitter they follow him as well. Our guy just sits, stunned. He cannot comprehend how one stream could explode so wildly. And to make it even crazier, famous clippers have already turned his stream into a series of viral clips. This whole clipper culture turned out to be a truly powerful advertising machine. It even took his trick beyond the border. And just at that moment, his phone rang, an incoming call from Kanzaki. It's his manager. She is simply losing her head and wildly congratulating him on these incredible numbers. Meanwhile, Botan just mumbles that the rework was successful but doesn't share the joy. She doesn't want to hear that he, in just one night, is already competing with the best talents of their agency. He blushes, awkwardly stumbling over his words, saying that even comparing him to their legendary top streamer MAM Senpai is rude. This MAM Senpai is a true unattainable goddess of the agency, a first-generation talent adored by everyone. But enough, let's get back to business. The manager can't calm down and eagerly wants to know what his next step is now that he has become a viral sensation. Botan believes that you have to strike while the iron is hot, just ride this huge wave of hype. He literally imagines himself surfing on a giant crab and is going to squeeze everything possible out of this wave. He has a grand idea, a special edition in honor of 150,000 subscribers. He promises to prepare something even more valuable than the previous dish. But his manager sees further and says, a collab would be the perfect way to celebrate this milestone. Botan sharply braked and with a bitter smile said that it would take an eternity to properly arrange a collab. But he hadn't even worked side by side with Rika Hanabi from his generation, so he wouldn't dare to do something large-scale. Botan says his strategy is simple: not to do collabs to reduce drama almost to zero. But now, as he became famous, everything seems to fall into place, a row of dominoes he must knock down one by one. At the top of the list is his peer Rika Hanabi with ponytails, who glows with happiness because of this. If she is passed over for a collab with someone else, rumors will immediately spread that they hate each other. VTuber Drama 101. Looking at the clock, he tells the manager that it is probably better to postpone the special stream for now. His manager decisively cuts in. Let the colleagues just enter the chat and all these rumors about conflicts will disappear. She firmly warns him, making a reckless, too bold move right now is a terrible idea. Meanwhile, she is already writing down every problematic statement of his to manage the consequences and tells him, I'll handle everything myself. Button proposes a bold idea to hold a solo stream in honor of an important milestone, to solidify his brand even before any joint projects. To his surprise, the manager agrees. She sees strong, almost iron logic in his plan. When everything was decided, she instantly sprang into action, told him to prepare the announcement, and ran off to notify the agency herself. The call drops, and our guy throws the phone aside. He is already ready to hit the road. He dramatically stretched, showed off his abs to the whole world, and announced that it was time to prepare the stream. And so the special stream in honor of 150K is already live. Barton's avatar joyfully welcomes his huge new audience. Chad immediately bursts out with greetings, and his avatar happily reports that they have already surpassed 160,000 viewers. Even viewers from abroad shower him with love, and he realizes how far this video has spread. Our guy just laughs at all this, telling everyone as if he woke up and found out he became famous overnight. He quietly thanks everyone for the support. While the chat is still going wild, 150,000 subscribers in one day. He sincerely welcomes all the new faces and promises. He has another incredibly delicious dish prepared for them. When politeness is left behind, he announces, it's time to move straight to the main event. He shouts with a sparkle in his eyes, since this is a special stream, I'll prepare something even more luxurious than last time. But he immediately backs down and says, his old viewers know he's not very good at talking, so don't expect much. Finally, this incredibly awkward transition was left behind. Button sharply turns and exclaims that it's time to move on to the main course, no more empty talk. When the chat catches him on the sudden change, he simply calmly says that he will now show the recording. And then he removes the cover, and from underneath it appears a huge, simply colossal piece of marble meat that looks divine. Chad immediately recognizes this as top-class meat, and one comment guessed accurately, it is for foreign fans. And this is 100 his plan. He imagines how his international viewers go crazy over some select meat. Suddenly, his eye caught a comment saying that the colleagues just went mad looking at this. Stunned, he is forced to ask the chat again if this is really happening right now, and the chat replies, yes. It turned out his peers were insanely angry that he did it alone, so they arranged a joint viewing to discuss and criticize him together. This confirmation hits him like a truck, because we see the whole team, closely gathered around one monitor, screaming wildly during his stream. Button smiles and says, if everyone is watching, then he will have to put on a show for them too. He did not hesitate, immediately threw himself into the task, ready to talk about that legendary ingredient he was going to prepare. It is. He shows this is a drop from a forged demon's cup, and this is not just a cut, this is Chateaubriand. And a quick diagram shows, here it is, the best part of the tenderloin, the most tender piece that exists. Imagine, from a whole cow you get only about 600 grams, and the chat is just shocked. Of course, the forged demon's cup is 5 to 6 times bigger than a regular cow, so that's all. His body is an absurd combination of incredible massiveness and sculpted musculature, leaving everyone in the chat speechless. To clearly show everyone the absurdity of this encounter, he decided to arrange a small show for the viewers. And with one light tap of the knife, the blade instantly shattered against the thick piece of beef. He just smiles through the chaos, and the chat goes completely crazy, asking if he is okay. Turn. While the muscle fibers in this thing are really strong like wire, you can't cut it by ordinary means. Button so casually tells everyone that he caught the broken blade in the air, as if it were an ordinary person's business. The demonstration ended, he loudly announces that finally the time has come to cook for real. Tonight you are awaited by a forged demonic bull Chateaubriand Hamburg steak made from 100 pure beef, without any additives. So essentially this is a true meat feast, a luxurious parade celebrating the finest beef. Its first step is to turn the stove into mince, and Chad immediately explodes. This is logically impossible. The audience has every right to doubt. They wonder, how can one even choose something that can break steel? But our guy just smiled and promised to use a special method, one that no one at home even dares to repeat. And suddenly a special skill comes alive and begins to act. His eyes light up as soon as he touches his unique power, the Venom Alley. We are briefly told that dungeon seekers can acquire these mysterious power skills, and this allows him to look into the very foundations of the world and briefly rewrite them for a certain purpose. In the end, a technique that processes any target lightning fast and flawlessly. He unleashes his signature move, 1,000 cuts, a storm of invisible blades that crashes down on the meat. Concentration is incredible. The reticular pattern of the attack is reflected in his pupil, and suddenly the indestructible slab instantly turns into a perfect pile of mint candies, and the chat just froze in amazement. Botton just smirked, watching the whole chat go crazy, and admitted he did it just for the drama. Then he warns everyone, even his mint draggies, they are still very dangerous to deal with. While you need to use a skill to toughen your hands, because the meat wires will tear them apart, a perfectly normal cooking tip. He calmly adds that other researchers probably can handle the hand toughening moment, as if that's the only crazy step here. But in this form, the meat is still inedible, so he has to knead it long and hard until it finally softens. After hard work, what once seemed unbreakable under his touch turned into perfectly soft and pliable. The whole essence of his secret is to break the fibers before heating so that the flavor finally unfolds. But the chat, sensing his hesitation, throws a million-dollar question. Has he really ever eaten this? He simply smiling openly admits, yeah, he's trying this thing for the first time in his life. Our guy laughs and says, usually I would just buy ready-made food at the store and wouldn't bother like this. Then he finally reveals the simplest reason why he went through all that trouble for the stream. He just knew for sure it would be incredibly tasty. He explains the simple rule of the dungeon. The deeper you go down, the more valuable the loot. If you follow the same logic, the ingredients from the deepest levels are definitely the best, no matter how strange they may seem. After the theoretical lesson, he announced with relief that the session needed for the marathon was finally over. Now it's time to season this giant cutlet and slap it into the mold, squeezing all the air out of it. He decides that a 1 kilogram cutlet is the perfect start, so he prepares a stone plate for the main event. This huge cutlet slams onto the hot stone with a bang, instantly sizzles, and although the piece is tender, it surprises with its incredible density. So much juice is already flowing from it that he suddenly feels he needs to prepare a sauce that will go well with it. Meanwhile, at Hate Watch, among his colleagues, this turned into a continuous scream, pure, uncontrollable envy over the food. One of his friends almost drools and asks everyone to wait a second. And in the pan, the rendered juices turn into a sauce that already looks like a true legend. Even Botan honestly admits, only the smell makes him insanely want to eat. Having fried the cutlet on all sides, he only pushed it aside for a moment. Can you really waste all that fragrant oil? This is a real crime against humanity. He begins to create a thick sauce from red wine, and Chad is sure. Before him is a professional chef in disguise. But as soon as he turns the cutlet back again, the viewers instantly panic inside it is still raw. Botan, with a self-satisfied smile, points to the hot stove he has been heating all this time. A simple but captivating plan, finish cooking right at the table in teppanyaki style. He asks everyone to look for this type of hamburger steak, and Chat immediately starts inventing how to cook his own. Of course, he immediately shouts, "Don't try this," but as you know, no one listens to him. The main reason is that fat splashes can simply destroy your kitchen. In fact, this is a very practical remark. With a devilish smile, he says that this is why his viewers better just go and pay for it in a restaurant while he tortures them. And at that moment, a comment from Rieka appears in the chat. She demands an offline collab because the stream is too cool to ignore. Botan, suddenly finding himself surrounded by a flock of pigeons and not understanding why, begs his colleagues to calm down. He finally gives in and says, if they are making such a fuss, they might as well just do a real collab. He opens the request line and with a burning sparkle in his eyes says, "Send everything you want if you're so passionate about it." Requests from peers surged like a wave. They wanted everything from a hearty dinner to expensive spirits. Peeking from the edge of the screen and swaying a little, he says that the message was heard loud and clear. And here they serve the last dish, a huge set called Forged Demon Bowl with a Hamburg steak that looks simply divine. The masterpiece is complete. Botan announces that the time for the official tasting has finally come. And he calls the viewers, witness this legendary first bite. The fork in his hand sinks into the meat that once seemed unbreakable, and it is immediately clear how incredibly tender it has become. He just cut the patty and a real volcano of juices erupted from it. Our guy just stares, frozen, completely stunned by the burst of flavor escaping. The meat pushes out all the moisture hidden inside it like a fountain, a truly captivating spectacle. But he hasn't finished yet. The time to add the sauce is just about to come. The chat is simply madness. As soon as he is about to pour it, they already call him the Lord of the Mountain. At this moment, he was already completely disconnected from all those comments. They were only about the food in front of him. He bathes the steak in a rich red wine sauce, and the whole chat just turns green with envy. Suddenly, Botan laughed like a madman, completely conquered by his own culinary genius. Lifting one shiny piece, he knows, this will surpass everything he has ever tasted. He took a deep breath and raised the fork to his mouth. The time for the final verdict has come. This bite is a moment of pure, sincere touch of flavor, and his whole world just seems to crumble into a million tasty pieces. Our guy freezes without words, as if rooted to the spot, unable even to comprehend what is happening when he tries to say words, but they get stuck. The taste is too strong. Suddenly, he realized that he could not just leave the chat hanging. He had to find words to explain this divine experience. He hits the keys loudly and hurriedly, trying to convey the feeling of something hard, like steel, melting on his tongue. Words betray him, so he silently dives in again and bites off another huge piece, completely conquered by the delicacy. After a steak of god level, he serves himself a huge portion of plain white rice. And our guy just starts to deeply inhale it, and the whole world around seems to disappear. He goes back for another serving of rice, as if possessed by the pure taste, and the viewers listen for a whole minute only to his deep, satisfied sigh. Botan finally emerges with a blissful smile and joyfully announces a complete victory, while the chat already calls it food terrorism. Then he lazily apologizes for completely abandoning the stream just to eat. Before, with that self-satisfied smile, saying that his culinary streams are always like this and everyone needs to get used to it. He waved goodbye. The special episode suddenly ended right here, at this moment. Leaning back, he admitted that he simply couldn't resist. The food was too delicious to waste time talking. But as soon as he turns away from the table, as if he has one last word left that he wants to say, suddenly he appears in a luxurious fur coat, and with a solemn sparkle in his voice, thanks everyone who came to his stream on the occasion of 150,000 subscribers. He loudly and sincerely thanks his team and viewers who have been with him from the very beginning, expressing sincere gratitude for the opportunity to be noticed by so many people. Suddenly, a colleague looked into the chat, greeted him, and persistently insisted, all the success is solely his merit. She shows him step by step how to build a career, first to gain a loyal circle of fans, and then to make him famous throughout the country. Botan humbly bowed his head in a bow and sincerely asks everyone to continue supporting him on this path. Finally, when all matters are settled, he presses the button and the broadcast goes out once and for all. As soon as everything ended, he flopped back into the chair, completely exhausted but relieved. At that very moment, a young man with dark hair appears behind him, clearly puzzled. And his manager wonders, what is he doing here immediately after the stream ended? Botan froze like a statue. The manager caught him red-handed during the post-stream breakdown. His manager simply raises the phone. A message from a colleague named Hanabi about a consultation appears on the screen. It turned out to be an invitation to an offline collab with his peers, suspiciously similar to a trap. Suddenly, we find ourselves next to a girl in a beret. She is waving vigorously near the door and calling Botan, because the time has come. Inside Botan, everything seems to have died when he is told to prepare for their broadcast. And suddenly, bursting with energy, the stream breaks forward and covers everything with an incredibly joyful wave. Finally, Botan, together with his colleague from the same generation, Rika Hanabi, officially launched their first joint stream. Hanabi is all in. She demands that Botan match her energy, but he clearly does not. He just smiles in front of 20,000 viewers and says that he made them wait not only in one sense. She seems to tremble with joy, celebrating that the official ban on collaborations has finally been lifted. Apparently, they had been whispering behind the scenes all this time, and now they can finally tell everyone about it, but she was determined. She ordered him to stop the small talk and get straight to the point. He insists, wanting everything his way. He says there must be action immediately on his channel, no empty talk. The chat wildly asks for details, and Hanabi agrees the time for a big reveal has come. And so, with great fanfare, she finally announces the essence of today's joint project. Here is the official collab of Genmates. She, with a proud smile, says, this time he won't escape. The theme is a luxurious dinner by Chef Botan, and for this she chose an incredibly ridiculous mask. So here's the deal. He takes ingredients from his dungeon and cooks for her, actually using the favor earned during the last stream. Ched instantly panics, and Botan suddenly seems to notice that one of their Jin friends is missing. Hanabi pushes the microphone right into his face and firmly demands, what is Chef Botan cooking tonight? Cornered, Botan holds her breath and listens as Hanabi announces that by public request, she will serve luxurious seafood. And she immediately demands to know how expensive this dinner is, making Botan awkwardly stammer and mumble about market prices. Suddenly something clicked in his head. He remembered that news about the dungeon fish sold for 2 million yen. And he calmly prices his ingredients at least twice as high, as if this is completely normal. As soon as the amount was announced, several million yen, for the dinner, Hanabi's mind seemed to short-circuit instantly. Meanwhile, their colleagues are heatedly arguing what's the point if he just eats everything himself, like a fisherman's meal. The chat instantly became alert and suspiciously blurted out, did the mountain lord forget to pay taxes? He just snorted and with a smile said that he has a professional accountant who makes all his underground business completely legal. Then our guy says there is a fundamental difference between them. They see the world differently. For him, a simple walk through the dungeon with a stick brings 10 times more than the annual salary of an office worker. Hanabi is simply stunned when he explains, there is no point in committing a crime if you can get rich completely legally. He calls it an absolute life hack. Going through the lower floors alone without any equipment is unreal, ridiculously strong. And finally she realizes, Botan is not just rich, he exists in a completely different economic world. She stubbornly refuses everything, saying it is too expensive, but Botan physically does not let her back down. He got right up close to her face and barked that all the ingredients from the dungeons are incredibly expensive, so what was she even counting on? Hanabi exploded and shouted that she knew they are valuable, but not enough to cost a car. She even insisted that she was completely ready to quietly return the money for lunch to him. Botan shrugged and waved it off, saying that such things are not just given to others like that. He suddenly pulls her onto a chair and refuses any payment, saying that money will only complicate everything. Our guy just sighs and explains that the whole point is to stage a scene with absurdly luxurious food just for the sake of the stream. Hanabi loses control and screams that her genmate is much crazier than she ever could have imagined. The bottom just throws out, "Start the stream," and calmly goes to cook, leaving her alone to clean up all this chaos. Even their other genmate in the chat says that Botan has completely lost his sanity. Ignoring everyone, he pulls out a small, inconspicuous pouch from off-camera, and he pulls out a fish huge like a torpedo, ready to start while Hanabi begs him to stop. She goes crazy, demanding to know where that monster came from. Our guy just easily lifts this giant sea monster as if it were an ordinary baguette from the store. She points at it, eyes full of surprise, and asks, "Did you really pull that huge thing out of that tiny pouch?" He thinks she's worried about freshness and hastily reassures her time inside has stopped, although in reality she doesn't care about that at all right now. Finally, Hanabi shouts the obvious: the fish in the pouch are not the same size at all. It turns out it's a spatial pouch, a kind of classic item box that can stop time, and she just can't believe it's real. The chat instantly explodes. Everyone is shouting that this is one of the most broken items that exist. Someone else, indignantly pointing, exclaims, "This is a strategic asset at the state level. Why did some random streamer just win it?" Suddenly, a viewer recalled a recent story how the US government bought a similar item for a crazy 40 billion yen, and Hanabi's soul seems to be tearing out of her body. She just froze, watching as terrible comments flooded in, and Botan was already on standby, ready to start cutting and slicing. He casually explains, since the thing is tied specifically to him, on paper it costs zero, essentially a perfect way not to pay taxes. Pushing aside a bag worth billions of yen, he, as if nothing happened, pulls out a huge underground lobster. He serves the appetizer, a large dish on which grilled and raw lobsters shine and look simply divine. Then Botan asks if she can even eat shellfish, and she only barely nods, completely shattered by the situation. Hanabi is completely confused, saying that this whole collab is too much for her poor little heart. Botan just throws a self-satisfied smile and assures her that one bite will make her forget all her small, unimportant problems. And at that very moment, several staff members suddenly appeared off camera and asked if they could try the legendary dish too. Under the pressure of peers and her own curiosity, Hanabi finally gives in and prepares to eat. She cheerfully exclaims that delicious food should be shared, and everyone gathers around the table. Then Hanabi asks hopefully if Chef Botan will join, but he is already busy. The next dish is bubbling on the stove. He simply nods all right, grabs chopsticks, and finally joins the feast himself. When everyone is gathered, they cheerfully and sincerely shout "Bon appetit" and prepare to dive into the underground lobster. Hanabi takes the first bite, a moment of pure, sincere encounter with the flavor. And her whole world seems to shatter into tiny pieces, her eyes wide open in complete disbelief at this taste. That taste seems to cause a short circuit in her head, while Botan just watches and enjoys the complete chaos he himself created. Even the workers in the heavens were stunned. How is this even possible? And Botan just shrugged. It's food from the dungeon, what else did you expect? The diagram shows everything. Dungeon creatures are not like ordinary animals, their taste is truly divine. Hanabi started crying. It's just unfair. She knew she would never be able to return to ordinary shrimp again. The taste exploded in her so much that blood ran from her nose, but she physically cannot stop eating, a true addiction. Botan casually asks if she is okay. The main course is ahead, and he fears she might start crying for real. She instantly and sharply cuts him off, accusing him of spreading rumors that she is crying, and yes, she really is crying. Unfazed, he simply tells her to prepare the sticks for the next dish and lifts the now empty plate. With a confident, sly grin, she wonders if the main course will be as tasty as that appetizer. Within seconds, she is already lying unconscious on the floor. Botan says she still hasn't had enough, and chat just loves this drama. When the appetizer plates were emptied, Botan announced with a smile that it was time to move on to the main course. And he, as if on stage, dramatically unveils a giant piece of fish. Hanabi is simply stunned, who barely manages to exclaim, "What on earth is this?" while explaining that this is dungeon drop tuna, or more precisely, it is a monster that miraculously looks and even tastes like tuna, but inside is completely different. He reveals its official name, cannonball tuna, and overall it doesn't sound threatening at all. And the name here is quite literal. A fish the size of a cow rushes through the water like a living projectile. Having narrowly escaped deadly danger, he calmly pointed to various cuts of fatty taro on its belly. Finally, Hanabi's brain rebooted, and the first thought was, "Can I upload the photo to Twitter?" He gives her the green light and calmly says, "Do whatever you want, they won't show it on the video anyway." And her tweet instantly exploded with comments. Everyone insisted that the fish costs at least 4 million yen. While she tries to comprehend this, Botan casually says that at the auction it probably fetched 30 million. Before serving the rest of the dishes, rice with vinegar, gnarly, and miso soup. Here is the recipe. Suddenly something clicked in Hanabi's head. She realized That side of the rice with vinegar they make sushi that. Which Barton confirms by lifting the perfect hand roll and saying that it is the perfect dish for every day. She was gripped by horror at the very thought of spending everything, and he just waved his hand, as if buying a pre-sliced pack at the store. Hanabi's brain finally gives up. It decides that for the sake of her sanity, it's better to just surrender to the madness that. She turns to the huge piece of fish and boldly throws the last word about this situation. Barton just laughs and promises that soon she won't be able to think about anything at all. When the jokes died down, he grabbed the huge blade and shouted, "Finally, it's time to cut." The first cut is about to be made. The knife itself seems to gleam with anticipation. With one clean motion, Barton begins to cut open the huge belly of the fish, surgical precision in every move. And then he, like a sculptor, skillfully slices a piece and divides it into perfect portions: lean, medium, and fatty toro, before starting to cut the block into generous, thick pieces for sashimi. And in a matter of seconds, a real mountain grows on the tray, perfectly arranged slices. Even the trimmings do not go to waste. He starts grinding the leftovers into a fine paste. He sprinkles a spoonful of miso and generously squeezes wasabi to enhance the flavor. And our guy simply switches to pro chef mode, swiftly slicing and mixing everything together, resulting in a perfect bowl, as if straight from a top-tier restaurant. He even scrapes the last pieces of meat off the skin so that absolutely nothing is wasted. And with a skillful flourish, he presents the final masterpiece, a luxurious sushi set with tuna, even including the head for effect. Hanabi's brain finally rebooted, and she shouts that she has a million things she wants to say about this whole situation. She complains, while she was distracted, he already started preparing something else, and even over an open flame. She glanced at the phone. She sees how Chad is completely losing his mind, and suddenly it dawns on her. He earned so much that it would be enough for the whole team. He simply extended his hand as a sign of peace, and as if nothing had happened, said that the entire preparation took him only 3 minutes. Barton simply says, "Stop thinking so much, just eat," and she can no longer even argue with that. An incredibly arrogant smile shone on his face, as if he was challenging her to complain. She sighs and just listens as he shows different cuts of toro from very fatty to almost lean. Deciding to take a risk, she grabs a shiny piece of the fattiest toro to make her first roll with her own hands. She bites off a huge piece, preparing for another culinary blow to the brain. And suddenly she just disappeared from the place, and Barton was left completely bewildered. Barton asks how the food tastes, and is surprised to see that Hanabi is lying face down on the table. He only smiled slyly and admitted that he was not surprised at all, a completely expected result of his cooking. She jumps again, but only silently and mechanically chews with an empty, dead look, while Chat pleadingly asks for a review. The narrator explains that when people taste something truly divine, their brains just break, or to tell more precisely about this whole situation, the stream of taste sensations from her tongue completely paralyzes the mind. She turns into a machine that only eats. He noticed that she ate only one piece and, unable to bear it, told her to stop savoring it for so long. Then he leans in with a devilish smile on his lips and whispers to her to just keep eating. It's incredibly creepy. Chad instantly felt a chill and called it a demon, pushing her beyond the point of no return. Someone in the chat directly asks if he is a sadist, and Barton just looks offended, as if the very suspicion that he is. He shouts that it's just a show. His partner froze, but Chad doesn't fall for it for a moment. They see how his true, distorted nature breaks through the mask, while Hanabi just keeps chewing. When Chat suggests setting him on fire, Barton truly freezes in surprise. Would he even catch fire? He came to his senses and shouted, "You just can't treat people like that." Suddenly, Hanabi seems to reboot and, as if waking up, asks why he was silently eating all this time. And Barton just exploded, howled that she literally turned into a doll that eats, as if he pressed the robot power button. Then he pulls out a torch and a gasoline canister and says, "The very fact that he even thought about it proves he is a sadist." Our guy just throws a sly glance as if saying, "Don't take his wild joke so seriously." Meanwhile, all the staff silently and greedily devour the tuna, slowly sinking into a sweet post-lunch drowse. Barton only sighs, hesitating about what to do with the stream until Hanabi's consciousness decides to return. And when his partner dropped out, Barton decisively takes over the stream and comes up with a hashtag for his squad, Cannonball Tuna. While Hanabi's brain rebooted, all the food was already gone, and our guy calmly washes the dishes, the perfect crime. A little later, another streamer ends the broadcast and smilingly recalls that turbulent but successful collab with Hanabi. Here is Amam Ikika, an experienced streamer who launches her collab, and behind her tiny Barton peeks. She excites everyone, points to her partner, and dramatically waving her arms, introduces him to the audience for the whole day. They mocked, saying he was just a newbie, but lately he really raises big waves. And now the whole streaming world is buzzing about it. The reasons are obvious. Even before the reveal, it was clear. Her partner is, of course, the chaos agent Barton himself. But instead of his usual self-satisfied energy, he gives an overly tense, overly formal bow, and this completely throws Ikaku off. It turned out that he really sees a sincere, kind person in his senpai, and this is a rare show of respect for him. A brief flashback brings a memory. She was one of the few who, after some unknown incident, showed him kindness and therefore, when he was barely holding on, she helped him. Now he feels very indebted to her. Which turns into an absurdly deep apologetic bow in which she begs him, please stand up straight. He declares that the apology phase is over, and from now on he will behave as usual, while she is still recovering from that crazy awkwardness. Now he is just a floating head admitting. He is terribly nervous and Aika coldly asks if he is still tense. She is truly stunned. Even a guy with a god complex can be nervous, and she keeps wondering what he thinks about her. Fortunately, the tension melted away and they laughed together. Botan jokingly says that she just uncovered his only weakness. Officially breaking the ice, Aika takes up the stream again and prepares to announce her plan for the day. She announced that now they will play together, and opened the game. She looked incredibly creepy. Aika asks if he minds a horror game for their first collab, and it seems they are both ready to start. Botan quietly and shyly admits this whole horror game story is actually his fault, because his reflexes, hardened in dungeons, make him too strong for fights against ordinary people. So they of course had to choose a horror game just for the freakouts that go so well on stream. He's smiling, asks if a cooking stream wouldn't be better, and jokingly says it would only cause her stomach pain. Mikiko, with a cold smile, reminds him. After that Hanabi incident, the bosses officially banned him from participating in any cooking collaborations. Returning to the present, he froze in front of the screen. It is clear that this does not please him at all. Our guy teases and mocks her, asking if she can even handle horror, saying she looks like someone who scares easily. She just gave that self-satisfied little smile as if admitting she is a real coward, but still did not look away. Chad immediately confirms this. Everyone knows her. She loves horror, although she constantly screams at the top of her lungs. Botan gently offers her to take the wheel and move at her own pace. She gratefully agrees. And then he even declares that he will just stand as a commentator, leaving her alone against that horror. What a man. To really set the mood, Aikika decides to turn off the light in the room. And with just one click of the start button, the game officially begins. In the introduction, a familiar, tense scene appears. A lonely girl walks along a dark road in the middle of the night. A close-up of her sneakers on the sidewalk, each step echoes in the silence. This story is about how she is heading home late because she got a little too absorbed in club activities. Bam! Suddenly, a giant ghostly face popped up on the screen, and Aiki's little avatar just goes crazy. In the studio, she is completely thrown off, and Botan calmly asks about that strange sound she just made. Meanwhile, the character in the game froze in place and wonders if she imagined it. But when she looked at the phone, something ran past off-screen that immediately caught her eye. In the phone game, this character suddenly encounters a ghostly face, and Aiki's avatar just loses control. So as if nothing happened, Botan calmly asks, "Are you really a horror fan? You're about to lose it." She just sits there as if her soul has already flown to another dimension. Mikiko notices he didn't even flinch from that sudden scare, and he goes, "Of course not." He says if a researcher flinches from surprise, he simply dies, and that does not help at all. Suddenly this shocked Aika. He realized with horror why it does not bother him at all. It turns out he is simply used to it. When you fight monsters every day, even a horror movie becomes just background noise. Then he starts to philosophize. Supposedly, it is unfair to judge the imaginary by the standards of his crippled reality. Our guy, seemingly surprised, asks, "Why can't you just be scared like a normal person?" and this somehow makes her laugh. Meanwhile, in the game, the main heroine is just running wildly, saving her life in absolute terror. Suddenly, Aika remembers. She heard that researchers supposedly have a sixth sense for ghosts, and with a curious sparkle asks if it is true. Botan paused for a moment over the word sixth sense, and a sparkle appeared in his eyes as if he was about to reveal some important legend. She immediately starts to brush it off, deciding that it is just a silly rumor she heard somewhere. And then he suddenly says that he actually sees ghosts, and the chat just explodes. When everyone fixed their eyes on him, he raised a finger as if about to give a real lecture. He explains with inspiration. Constant use of skills and magic sharpens and reveals sensations, elevating them to a superhuman level. And Aika connects the dots and asks if this is the sixth sense that lives in him. Yes, almost. He continues to explain that some monsters are of the astral type. That is, essentially ghosts that can be hit with a fist. Having fought them more than once, you instinctively feel their presence as if tuning a radio to the right frequency. She asks if he can drive them away, and he quietly explains that researchers just hunt them like any other monster. Aika asks if he can handle real ghosts, and Botan just laughs and boastfully assures that he will deal with them without any problems. Suddenly she has a brilliant idea, to arrange a real ghost hunting stream and he will be her protector. She looks at him with those puppy eyes until he agrees, and the chat goes crazy at how casually they plan it. The viewers just go wild, calling it a real horror project with a real researcher. Someone in the chat immediately suggests playing hide and seek alone, the same infamous, creepy ritual. Meanwhile, another viewer raises the stakes and loudly demands that they try some dangerous summoning spells because, of course, it can't be without that. Botan humbly says that he is not a psychic, but the chat convinced him that everything will be safe, so he just agrees to help. He only sighed and finally resigned himself to his fate to be the one who hits ghosts in their streams. But Aika sharply brings them back to reality first. They need to focus on getting through this horror game. Sudden flashback. Botan firmly insists that this entire horror collab was her idea from the very beginning. The screen suddenly flashed white. As if the thought was lost, he clearly did not expect things to turn out this way. Then we see someone furiously pounding the keys, typing text this hints at a time skip, and drama is already brewing online. On the forum, fans guessed where Botan was supposedly. After the collab, he went into the dungeon for a week, when suddenly a new post appeared. Botan officially tweeted that he returned from the dungeon. The next comment showed that he immediately stepped on a social media mine and is being torn apart in the comments, and another user in shock asks how one can return from the dungeon and instantly cause a scandal. This is. And the scene shifts to a new character. He wanders a dark street and laments how everything got so out of control. And we see him on the couch, phone in hand, all sticky with sweat after that huge internet storm he himself stirred up. Here's what all the fuss is about. He just tweeted that on the way home from the dungeon he rescued a stray cat. And now he looks at the phone, completely bewildered by the crazy reaction crashing down on him. Scrolling through the phone, he suddenly freezes. On the screen, stunning news about the virtual idol Yudu. It seems this idol Irohane Yuda is in critical condition. She is not an ordinary person. She is a true superstar with over 1 million followers and a titan of the industry. But suddenly a terrible misfortune befell her, shaking the entire streaming world. Scrolling through the headlines, Botan everywhere encounters rumors about his death and horrifying details of the accident. It turned out she fell down the stairs and completely lost consciousness. Her fans on the internet are simply going crazy. They demand answers from her team, who remains silent. Sitting back on the couch, Botan admits he is genuinely stunned. He had only seen her in fragments before. Suddenly a clarity flashed in his gaze as if he connected all the dots. He finally understands. While attacks are pouring on him due to misunderstanding, she actually needs help. The problem is this. The useful image clearly shows he and that other streamer are not officially connected at all. He understands why people are angry if he were dying, and the rival gave the saving elixir to the cat instead of him. His fans would riot. The guy screams in panic that he knows absolutely nothing, and suddenly a barely alive cat falls on him. At that very moment, his phone suddenly rang, pulling him out of the spiral. And on the caller ID suddenly appeared a name none other than MangaRecap. He picks up the receiver and she immediately says, "Do you have a minute to talk?" Meanwhile, she is doing her best to tame her chaotic favorite, and simultaneously assures him that she is fine. She explained she called because she was worried this cat scandal could explode at any moment. Botan simply lost her mind. She says that hatred on the internet hurts less than a monster's bite. These people see no prospects at all. It seems Hanabi has come up with something. She says that if her memory serves her right, she might have a solution. Hanabi on the phone, her voice trembling with anxiety, explains. Aika is secretly pulling strings to help the wounded idol Yuda. And she drops a shocking news. Aika and Yuda were actually friends in previous lives long before they became streamers. Botan's mind short-circuited for a moment when he learned about the secret world of VTuber identities and their connections to real life. Because in this industry, there is a huge wall between the streamer and the person on the other side of the screen. For big companies, hiring a complete stranger is like throwing money away. They only take proven professionals. So most often they pull talents from other platforms, people who already have their own audience and experience. She bitterly points out that because of this, both she and the bot are strange exceptions who were hired without any influence. Hanabi says that for the sake of that old friendship she decided to intervene even if she has to get dirty. She explains that Aika is stuck in trouble. She sincerely wants to save her friend, but she can't just approach Botan and ask for the saving potion. And our guy listens silently. He understands. Aika is too proud to ask for help even when a friend is in critical condition. Hanabi winks, shows a peace sign, and jokingly says that her streamer persona is too kind to address a colleague with such a selfish request. Botan just smiles. He doesn't mind intervening a bit and asks her to pass on one message. The hero we need, with a cat on his shoulder, confidently tells her, "Tell Ika that I'm already on the case." Hanabi practically melted from his instant readiness to rush to help without any questions. Of course, his cool moment was instantly spoiled by the cat, which suddenly jumped on his face just when he was trying to be a hero. Meanwhile, Hanabi struggles with the agitated pet with all her might, and honestly says that the whole plan is not working at all. While Botan is being teased, she quietly says, "Maybe the cat is just hungry, it needs milk." Light. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in his head. He instantly grabs a baby bottle and sincerely thanks her for the advice that saved his life, or at least saved face. And so, the tiny demon of chaos peacefully sucked from the bottle, problem solved. Botan finally catches a moment of peace, presses the now calm kitten to himself, and sighs loudly with relief. When the kitten finally calmed down, Botan grabbed the phone again, time to deal with the consequences. He was just called to the office, now a very serious conversation about all this online drama awaits him. He heads to Digigrass, his talent agency. It's time to face the music business. 2 days have passed since that incident and the internet fire is still burning. So our guy enters the main office, tightly clutching the cat carrier, ready for a serious talk with the management. He immediately notices someone waiting for him, and this person also looks a bit surprised. It turned out to be his manager. He instantly apologizes for dragging her into this mess so early. She leads him to the conference room and says, "Wait here until the president arrives." But then she notices how his tiny companion inquisitively asks if that star is the star cat that caused all this commotion. This manager instantly melts before their eyes, completely enchanted by the cute little agent of chaos. Botan blushed at her sudden interest and, stumbling over his words, apologized for bringing it with him. He says that the kitten is still too small to leave it unattended, and she only says how tiny it is in real life. The plan is simple. Leave the carrier on the floor during the meeting, and the cat, it seems, is not bothered at all. The manager refuses to agree. She says she won't just walk past such cuteness. She is a true cat fan. The kitten soaks up everything around like a sponge and smiles as if saying, "Now this is mine." She connects the dots and asks with a smile, does he like cats because in Discord he has a cat icon? But her mood instantly darkens when she painfully says how terrible it is that people on the internet attack this tiny creature. Botan's face darkened in agreement. He called their behavior completely unforgivable. Clinging to the chair, he recalls angry comments demanding potion for their idol, not for the stray. Looking out the window, he quietly whispered to the manager that he understands why they are angry and can just take all the criticism himself. He assures that he can withstand any heat, but as soon as the kitten appeared, it became clear. There is one thing he cannot forgive. Because honestly, this situation just drives him to furious rage. He has already been mercilessly called a fraud and a criminal, and on the internet they even advised, "Die, it's just another Tuesday." Our guy has been listening to all this for years, so the online crowds of haters no longer scare him. And it was all simple. He pushed boundaries and took risks, and he was completely okay with that. This time everything is completely different. He will never let this go. Now they are not just attacking him, they are sending death threats to a tiny innocent kitten. And even worse, they are defaming Yuta's name just to justify their furious rage. Simply. At that moment the door suddenly opened, and the company president entered the room along with 2 other people. His manager lets out a sharp, terrible breath. She clearly did not expect what she sees. Button stands on his feet, bowing so low that he almost folds in half, and formally apologizes. He raises his head, eyes confused, ready to face any punishment from the management. The guy immediately starts apologizing for such a huge mess, trying to stay calm at the same time. But the president only introduces the newcomers Yuta's manager and the guy from the legal department. Button awkwardly introduces himself, still in shock from this sudden meeting where everything is at stake. Then that lawyer suddenly bows and sincerely apologizes to him, and this only confuses everyone even more. Our guy is just completely baffled. He has no idea what, damn it, is even happening here. He looks into the carrier and asks the kitten, "Do you really scare these people like that?" And the cat simply gives him that cheeky little smile as if saying, "Yes, exactly, without a doubt." Meanwhile, a news report explodes on the screen. The company has released an official statement about the incident. They release a joint statement, essentially a corporate shut up or face a lawsuit, a typical PR move. Botan silently watches as the official announcement appears calm and indifferent, as if it's just another ordinary Tuesday. In fact, a wildly confident smile sits on his lips. He thinks the fans' anger is playing into his hands, but his face freezes like stone. It becomes clear that this was his plan from the very beginning. He is not just reacting, he is orchestrating everything, and his next move is an important live stream announcement that instantly turns his chat into a real nightmare for the moderators. The screen flashes live and the main event begins instantly. His avatar appears in full costume, politely introduces himself, and then suddenly drops a bombshell. He freezes for a second, letting the chat build up hype while everyone spams that they were waiting just for him. The chat instantly turned into a solid wall of messages, all of them begging him to save Yuta, and completely ignoring everything else. He looks at the sea of comments and thinks to himself, "Yes, I was waiting for this, but this is still some special kind of hell." Even some sainter viewers openly say how toxic this chat is, and thank the moderators for their thankless work. But Botan is increasingly diving into concentration, and only one type of comment simply drives him crazy. These are the confident demands of fans who act as if he is personally responsible for Yuta's life, just because they are both streamers. In his head, he divides them into 2 piles, concerned trolls and openly angry ones, both equally unbearable. Our guy is just boiling. Everyone is shouting for him to name Yuta, and this is a huge violation of streamer ethics. Finally, he spoke, and everyone again turned their eyes to the tweet that started it all about the cat. Suddenly he becomes serious, points his finger, and firmly says that there are comments he simply cannot ignore. He says he can withstand any pressure, but slander and threats against a tiny innocent kitten are unforgivable to him. He exposes the haters, people who are just angry because they don't like him, and hide behind this to pour out their usual filth. But the chat, like that eternal sage, insists even more stubbornly. Stop talking about the cat and finally turn to Yuta. He sits and watches as the chat flies by and with bitterness notes, the speed and content are just as toxic as before. And his avatar calmly sums up, for people like them the only option left is to sue. Addressing the audience, he sincerely admits that he understands this is only a small, noisy part of the fandom that is going crazy. Fist clenched, he decided, he still has to endure this because it is for their own good. And then he drops a bomb, pulls out a stack of official requests to expose the accounts behind the worst threats. We move on to one of the trolls who just found out he is being doxxed, and a police report has already been filed against him. This guy and his mom are simply in panic. He thought he could pour out his hatred with impunity. On the stream, Botton's avatar smirked and threw out, "I was silent only because dealing with them is a total hassle." He leans toward the camera with a creepy look and, as if challenging, says, "Let all the haters tremble, VTubers are not their punching bags." The chat was instantly flooded with deleted messages. Moderators were slowly clearing them out, and someone threw out, "He officially snapped." Even more viewers froze. The sudden shift in tone shocked them, and they ask, why did he suddenly become so frighteningly cold? While a major purge of messages is underway, one fan stands aside and watches as a real brawl unfolds among the anti-fans. With an icy smile, Botan warns them, if they receive a letter in the mail, they better be ready to pay. He points directly at the viewers and defiantly promises to show them the true cost of their behavior on the internet. And then one of the trolls receives an envelope from his mother, and his face instantly turns pale. "In front of me is an official legal document demanding the disclosure of his personal data, and the consequences have already caught up." Back on the stream, Botan stands silently, and it becomes crystal clear. He was not bluffing. This troll completely loses it in a pitiful outburst of rage and sorrow. He smashes the keyboard. His tone instantly changes. He floods the chat with apologies and insists he just wanted to help Yuri. But Barton gives him nothing, and the guy screams at the monitor, begging for at least some recognition. That troll just stared at the screen, completely broken after the threats from the lawyers he just received. But Botan's avatar is not ready yet, and he writes in the chat with cold confidence, "This kind of behavior is my goal." Our keyboard warrior completely loses his mind, sobbing uncontrollably, because the real consequences are now knocking at the door. Suddenly, a tiny meow from the kitten's cage tore Barton away from his epic villain monologue. Suddenly, he instantly breaks character on the stream and apologizes. His kitten urgently needs milk, a real crisis moment. His avatar just smiles slyly, and everyone in the chat agrees in unison. Yes, the cat's needs come first. And so our guy, right in the middle of all that fuss, takes a bottle and starts feeding the kitten, completely abandoning his legal battle. This little agent of chaos is simply on cloud 9, full of milk and completely unaware of the drama he caused. But Botan just smiles, calls the boy a little glutton, and all that fear instantly melts away. He leaned back, completely exhausted, and realized that this whole legal dispute was just a warm-up. Returning to the stream, his avatar explains, "It was just a small warning shot," before he moves on to the main topic with that. When the kitten finally quieted down, Botan gathers his strength. He understands he can no longer keep the viewers waiting. His avatar pops up again and cheerfully says, "Sorry for the wait, such a sharp change of tone is simply legendary." Finally, he spoke about the situation with Yuta and even added an overlay showing, "The kitten is eating now." Reading the chat, he confidently says that both agencies gave him full permission to talk about this delicate topic. His first argument is a huge mistake. He has no idea at all what state Utah is really in. He asks everyone to wait a little for official news from her company, and the chat seems to agree for now. Taking everything into account, he says he will now explain exactly what he will do as a streamer. And then he, as if dropping a bomb, says directly, "Honestly, I can't help her with anything." This troll, who was watching from home, sighed with relief. He thought he was finally safe. But the troll is already back in action, pounding the keyboard and demanding to know why Barton doesn't want to help. And the rest of the chat echoes in unison, ready to chip in for the potion, no matter its price. Botan's avatar calmly acknowledges their anger and frankly admits he understands why they are angry. Because in theory, he has a potion that might be able to restore her full health. But then he threw a harsh truth in their face. There is a huge difference between what asterisk might be and what asterisk is legal. He sighs and explains that under all the laws passed after dungeons first appeared, he can't just give away the potion. The kitten continues to suck milk, completely indifferent, and Botan promises to give them a quick and rough summary. He launches into an explanation and eagerly sorts the dungeon items into 3 main categories. First come things that can be freely sold, for example, monster parts, which, as it turned out, are even bought at the local fish market. There are things for which the transaction must be overseen by government officials, and they literally walk around with flags instead of heads. And finally, things that the authorities simply confiscate. Potions fall into the last two groups. So as soon as a researcher obtains a potion, by law they must immediately report it to the Researchers Association. Then they will have to choose, keep it and register it in their name or sell it. If they decide to sell, the state will either buy it directly or the item will go to a state auction where prices drive people crazy. This explainer made it clear that simply giving away potions is not an option, and the chat froze in complete shock. Further intensifying the bureaucratic nightmare, using a potion on another person is considered a medical act, and this falls into a complete legal gray area. The rule is ironclad and unbreakable. Outside the dungeon, potions can only be administered by licensed medical professionals. Sometimes there are exceptions, but not this time. Unfortunately, Yuta's situation does not qualify. If she is admitted to a hospital, only a doctor will be able to treat her. No one else has the right to do so. In the end, it all comes down to one bitter truth. Only Yuta's family can pass the potion to her doctors, so Botan can do absolutely nothing. Laughing, his avatar admits, after all this drama, he simply cannot stay on the sidelines. And in the real world, he has already told Yuta's family directly that he can consult, and that's final. His avatar bows low to end the stream, while the chat panics, screaming his name. And with the stream's end, Button remains in the dark ready to get to work, and the baby bottle, of course, is at hand. Suddenly, the frame shifts to a new guy. He bursts through the door and vows to help find a way around all this paperwork hassle. With a self-satisfied smile, he says, "The plan is to keep everything quiet for now because the operation officially starts." Later on the train, he was scrolling through his phone, and news about the war between Botan and the haters spread like wildfire. His warning shot worked even better than he expected. He is already watching the slander die down. The train approaches the station and he steps onto the platform. At first glance, it is clear. He is on a mission. Searching for his contact in the noisy crowd, he suddenly notices a woman with long hair and simply freezes in surprise. She turns to him and politely says, "Excuse me," to catch his attention right at that moment amid the bustling station. As if she recognized his voice, understanding instantly lit up on her face. Confirmed they found each other, and their secret meeting has now officially begun. It turns out she is Amame Ikika, a first-generation VTuber and senior to him in the industry. They agree using their VTuber nicknames in public is a terrible idea, so they decide to switch to their real names. So here she is finally introducing herself for real, Sira Futaba, her real name. And suddenly our mysterious man says his name, Yasukura Shishio, and it turns out this is Baton's real name. Botan froze for a moment, replaying the whole meeting in his head, like a scene from the life of secret agents. He feels that she is exactly as he imagined, beautiful, elegant, and with that motherly charm. A flashback leads to a work call. Streamers are delighted with her Holy Mother image, but Botan thinks his true impression is quite different. In his thoughts, she instantly transforms into the classic image of an older sister from a dating sim, a real target for conquest. Suddenly, he makes a full 90-degree bow and sincerely apologizes for dragging her to such a crowded place. But the guilt is felt by her. She knows he is risking himself only to help Yuri. Botan could not endure the awkward pause and went straight to the point. He needed her help. She insists that this connection is a complete coincidence. She got involved only after the girlfriend of one of the colleagues mentioned his name. Our guy is shining with happiness. He is delighted that the first-generation legend from the big agency still cares about a friend's problems. Her face changed instantly. She did not expect such a sincere, almost admiring reaction from him at all. And that sincere praise simply shut down her brain. She blushed, stammered, and began to stutter, completely confused. Everything turned upside down the moment she bowed to the audience, and suddenly became embarrassed by the attention she received. He almost begged her to stop, insisting that such a humiliating show was completely unnecessary. Seeing that they were already making a scene, he sharply grabbed her by the hand and said they had to go right now. They are just shuffling through the station, and the silence here is so unbearably awkward that it feels like a real master class in social anxiety. He just presses his hand to his face from wild cringe, and she worries that her thank you gift ruined everything. Here is a master class in communication. Our guy hurriedly says, not her, but him. He is simply completely defenseless in front of sincere gratitude. And suddenly she realizes, he is not angry, he is just paralyzed by shame from sincerity. She desperately begs for any kind of reaction. His silent breakdown truly frightens her. She grabs his sleeve and with a spark in her eyes, suggests saying the exact same line of another VTuber to break the ice. When her producer brain connects, she suddenly offers him the image of a shy boy, insisting that her audience will adore it. She is now lost in thoughts, comparing him to another streamer known for spending a lot of money on gacha games. Finally, she simply admits, all those excuses were made up. She is a fan and just wanted to hear his voice, then immediately apologizes for her emotional outburst. After a brief fan impulse, Sierra instantly becomes serious and says they need to hurry for Yuta's sake. Her thoughts immediately flew to their friend who got into trouble. She, clutching her heart with anxiety, asks if Yuta can even be saved, and admits that it seems a real miracle is needed for that. But Botan calmly says, if a miracle is needed, he is the one who will create it. Her entire behavior changes. She acknowledges that his confidence is much more reliable than just prayers for help. Suddenly she flared up, grabbed his hand, and pulled him along, leaving Barton completely stunned. Panic overwhelms his soul. She turned out to be unexpectedly strong, and this hand-holding is too intense for him. A crazy run led them right under a huge modern building that definitely could not be a cafe. He stands completely confused and asks, weren't they supposed to meet near the hospital? She just smiles and says that the cafe is located right on the hospital grounds. Entering inside, Botan froze in amazement. What luxury here, and admits that he never had a reason to visit a large hospital. Surai tries to get his attention, but our guy has not yet managed to comprehend everything happening around. He simply admires this technology and sincerely admits that he was so healthy that he never had to look inside such a place. Suddenly everything falls into place and she realizes with amazement. Despite being a researcher, he was never seriously hurt. A quiet moment hangs between them as they stand in the dazzling white corridor. He laughs awkwardly and she meanwhile wonders, what was that strange pause about? Brushing it off, he says it's nothing, and we are shown a flashback where he was simply destroyed, and he reduces it all to having died several times. Changing tone, she gave a thumbs up, agreeing incredibly convenient to have a meeting place right on the hospital grounds. Walking down the corridor, she suddenly notices their contact, and surprised, points to him to Bon. A woman with tired eyes and hair tied in a bun turns around and immediately recognizes Sierra. Sierra introduces them, smiling, presenting Botan to Yuta's mother, Mado Kayako, as an energetic researcher. The mother instantly bows low and, as is proper, introduces herself. She is overwhelmed with wild gratitude that he is ready to lend her his strength, and she thanks him again and again for the help. Botan, as always a true professional, gently asks her to lift her head and with a smile says he is glad to meet her. Imagine, Yuta is friends with one of Sierra's senior students, and this whole connection is a real crazy coincidence. Barton noticed that they are blocking the corridor and suggests finding a place to sit and talk properly. 1. As soon as they settled in the cafe, Sierra immediately grabbed the lid and said they need to review the situation. Button instantly asks about Yuta's condition and sincerely reassures that life is not in danger yet. Her mother confirms this, quietly explaining that Yuta was just outside with friends when the accident happened. It seems exhaustion finally took over. Descending the stairs, she simply fainted. Suddenly, Sierra puts everything together, remembers that the day before Yuta participated in a huge tournament of games for her agency. It seems to me that the moment of her fainting during that previous nosebleed was too convenient for Botan. Something is not right here. Fortunately, the paramedics acted lightning fast, and the potion was found. It is the only reason why Yuta is still alive. A quick hint whispers that even simple potions help in trouble, but all of them are controlled by power. Yuta's mother. Clenching her hands, the mother explains that her daughter is still stable for now. The fall paralyzed her. She just lay there, completely motionless. And then, like a blow to the stomach, due to spinal cord injury, she is paralyzed from the neck down. The mother whispered that Yuta is conscious, but it is hard to talk to her. The conversation does not go smoothly at all. She can drink liquid food, but the unspoken, a heavy burden hangs in the air while the mother's hands tremble. She finally broke down and sobs. Her daughter's body is broken, and the doctors say there is almost no chance of recovery. Sierra tries her best to comfort Yuta's mother. She is completely shattered. The news of the diagnosis stunned her. She desperately checked every option because she knew true hope is only in the potion. But all that searching led only to one thing, a discovery that broke the soul: complete and utter despair. To have at least some chance of full recovery, Yuti needs a potion of the highest grade, one that is essentially a myth. Botan listens gloomily. This once again proves what he already knew. Only a potion of the highest grade will help. And here it is, an object of divine level, a potion that instantly restores life even to severed limbs. The useful diagram clearly says, it fixes almost everything unless you are already in the coffin. Because of its insane power, only a few researchers manage to find even one, and almost no one agrees to sell it. Even if it unexpectedly surfaced, it can only be obtained through a government auction, and they have already taken care of that. Mother says they even talked to the Yuta agency, but the amount is mind-boggling. Button throws out the price tag. The bidding would start at 5 billion yen, and that's still on the low end with an asterisk. Feeling the full weight of her situation, he gently takes her hand, trying to calm her. He tells them, I promise nothing, but I will do absolutely everything in my power to help. First, he asks to see Yuta and insists, first we need to find out what she wants and only then plan anything. Mother quietly nods in agreement, a little stunned by his straightforwardness and determination. Three walked down the sterile hospital corridor, and above them hung a heavy, silent mood. By the door, Yuta's mother loudly announced that they had come and were entering so that her daughter would know. Suddenly flashback, Yuta as a VTuber shining with happiness and full of energy joyfully greeting her fans. Sierra looks with pain in her eyes as if she sees her friend in memory as she once was. Another memory rises, Yuta on stage singing with all her heart, completely lost in the music. Barton solemnly announced that he was Yaskura, Yuta's junior colleague, and finally we see her Yuta. She lies on a hospital bed, completely broken and unconscious. This scene revives in memory her bright VTuber self, which reaches out a hand with such passion that. Then the shot returns again to the oppressive reality. The group enters her silent room. Barton pulls up a chair and quietly, gently utters his real name Yazakura. Then he clarifies, maybe she knows him better by his streamer nickname Yame Nashibot. Barton, Yuta's weakly replies, asking to be called by her real name Jana. Suddenly, Barton's eye lit up, one of his skills awakened without any warning. It turns out, his unique ability Ajna envelops the room like a psychic net. Thanks to this power, he catches her first, simple thought just a barely audible ah. Then she thought, his videos where he cooks look incredibly delicious, priorities straight from the hospital bed. This guy just froze, stunned and speechless, while Yana thanked him for watching her stream. The girl's mother asks in shock, can you really read her daughter's thoughts? And Barton calmly confirms that he has a perception skill. He quickly reassures Anna, I only read surface thoughts to preserve your privacy, and it sounds strangely professional. Once decided, Barton asked for a minute alone with Yana. Everything needs to be discussed. He hands Siri and her mother a gift box and quietly asks them to watch over her while he talks a bit. They both, with surprise on their faces, looked at the get well gift and he explained, it's food from the dungeon that spoils quickly. Our guy wants to grate it and feed her immediately, saying that it is incredibly beneficial for her health. In the box lay a huge glowing immortal peach, a legendary item that restores strength. Mama was completely moved by this gesture, but Barton simply says, skin can be eaten, and prepares to serve. When mind reading started working, Barton says to Anya, just think about what you want to say and I'll catch it. She is a little embarrassed, extends a finger as if trying to make sure how this telepathic thing works at all. After a short trial run, he confirms that she has already mastered their new extrasensory hotline. He smiled reassuringly and said to her, don't worry if it feels a little strange at first. He even repeats his privacy policy but only reads surface thoughts, so there is no need to be embarrassed. One simple gesture of communication just broke her. She begins to sob with relief. This instantly threw our guy into a panic. He began to wonder if he had accidentally triggered some emotional mine. She mentally says that she is just incredibly happy finally able to talk normally with someone again. And Barton just understands. A stern expression immediately appears on his face when he realizes her despair. Her thoughts darkened. She again felt that moment when she suddenly realized all simple things became impossible. And it becomes even harsher. Her whole life and career boiled down to one thing, being a VTuber. Her entire impetuous image is her talkativeness, and the very thought that she might lose it simply suffocates her. She sincerely apologizes for derailing the conversation, and Barton gently says that it is not a problem at all. He crouches down to be at her level and says, of course, you are Waridanion would be. Then, as if nothing happened, he drops a traumatic bomb. He says he understands once simply lost parts of his body before he even had a chance to check if he still had his sanity. He recalls how once his hand was completely hopeless, and he just cut it off to be safe. Anna was, of course, horrified by this. Diverting the conversation from that incredibly grim tangent, he finally moves on to what he really wanted to say. He explains that even after that nightmare with the star, he stands right in front of her fully recovered and alive. With a broad, sincere smile, he asks if this gives her at least a little hope. But her hope instantly melts away. She says that he recovered from a potion she cannot obtain. Button waves his finger and says that this is not quite so, while Yana is completely confused. Lon, diving into a brief lesson about how items in dungeons are a chaotic bag of wild possibilities. Imagine a magical beans that restore you in water and instantly heal you, as if video game logic became reality, and scrolls that simply grant you new powerful skills out of thin air. And even magical things give you strange abilities simply because you wear them. With a mysterious look, he says, dungeons probably contain everything you have ever wished for or needed. He, smiling gently, says to her, it's not time to give up yet. Yana is just lying there, still broken and unsure if she will even dare to believe him. Button admits saying don't give up is a cliché, but here the miracle is exactly what you yourself have to do to make it happen. And he leans closer, confidently smiles and says it's for one simple reason. If she is not serious at all in wishing for this miracle, his motivation to create it will simply fade. She let out a light laugh and she admits he is indeed right. At the most needed moment, her mother flies back in, shining with joy, and exclaims, magical super peaches all sorted and ready for shipment. She suggests pausing this heated conversation for a minute so Yana can finally eat properly. Mother gently brings a spoon with food, kindly coaxing her to try, though she hesitates. Yana finally dares and takes a tiny, cautious bite of the shining fruit puree. Slowly chewing, she probably expects little from everything served in the hospital. But her eyes open wide. This is not just real, it is incredibly tasty. Sierra and another girl stand in the doorway and watch this scene. They do not understand at all what is happening. And Ayana suddenly gasps, touching her throat, and with delight realizes she can really speak again. And it is not just her voice. Suddenly Yana, with a shudder, understands that her hands really move. She sits in bed staring at her fingers and cannot understand at all what is happening. At the threshold, Sierra, all in tears and shock, she stammers, not believing her eyes at all. And Ayana's mother runs in, throws herself into her daughter's arms and sobs with incredible joy. Sierra is still frozen in place, hands pressed to her mouth. The sudden miracle simply stunned her. Meanwhile, Button smiles peacefully and says indifferently, "It seems a miracle has just happened." This instantly grabs Sierra's attention. She sharply grabs him and shouts that he is the one behind it. But with a smug smile, he insists, "I just brought a gift and came to talk, nothing more." She did not fall for his fake "I did nothing." She did not believe it for a moment. And here comes a brief explanation about the immortal peach, a famous, though rare, dungeon food. It is so valuable that it even comes with a state certificate from an official appraiser. The appraisal skill allows them to scan the item, and at that very moment all the information appears before their eyes, like from a Pokédex. But of course, how much information you get entirely depends on how skilled the appraiser is. On a clear diagram you can see, if your skill is too low you get nothing, but as soon as it rises all details open up before you. So the certificate states plainly, the expert was so strong that they recognized this as a genuine immortal peach. Everyone knows it grants full recovery, but rumors say that besides this it has some unknown effects. This makes the government look at it as if it were a new potion that must be kept under strict control. For now, it has simply been classified as a super powerful traditional medicine funny, because that is too mild a description. It turned out the first appraiser could not even read all the item's healing effects until they received a discharge from its power. In Sierra's room, always faithful to the rules, she asks, "Is this even legal after all? Giving potions to others is a big taboo." Botan smugly. He explains with a self-satisfied smile, if the peach effect exceeded the official certificate, then it is the appraiser's mistake, not his. He cheerfully gives a big thumbs up and says, "No problem," while Sierra looks as if she's about to have an aneurysm. She instantly exposes him and throws in his face. This is clearly a dubious trick that no one will acknowledge. He simply brushed off her worries about legal problems, as if truly dismissing the very thought of consequences. Explaining with a knowing look, such glitches sometimes just happen because the number of official appraisers is artificially kept low, the skill scrolls they need are incredibly rare. So in this situation no one lost money, so he can just pretend to be a fool and get away completely unpunished. Which makes Sierra say dryly, "A miracle happened and they are simply advised to ignore a bunch of suspicious details." His casual laughter prompts her to ask if he has done such tricks before. He knows all the system's loopholes too well. He just laughs even louder, as if directly admitting he is a repeat offender and probably created half the legal precedents himself. Suddenly changing the subject, he sharply said that looking for a miracle is a futile task, and waved his hand for them to leave. Inside, Anna and her mother, faces tear-streaked, pressed tightly against each other, and Sierra feels as if she is intruding on their private moment. Botan waved his hand as if it were a trifle and said, "I will call the association and the doctor. I will report this small malfunction." When Sierra was asked to stay and decide together with Yana and her mother what to do next, she froze in confusion. At the threshold for the last time, he gently reassures her. There was no crime, so she has nothing to worry about. Because when a popular VTuber is involved in the case, public envy is a completely legitimate, though vile, side effect. And here her VTuber persona Yuta sits alone under the spotlight. Her talent is put on display for everyone. While many fans will explode with happiness and wildly support her, celebrating the miraculous recovery, others will go mad with rage, ready to metaphorically burn her at the stake because of her luck. And she will be treated like a criminal. Fingers will point, baseless accusations will echo around. This is the dark side of fame. Sierra sweats and reluctantly admits she really cannot deny his opinion about the inevitable public drama. Botan says it is better to talk about such problems as early as possible, while they are still under control. She suddenly sees the association is about to drag him in for interrogation, and he just stands silently accepting it. He lays options on the table before her, either immediately return to the stream fully aware of the consequences, or simply say she recovered, wait for the noise to subside and maybe quietly walk away. But in the end, he whispered that the choice was neither his nor anyone else's. Now everything is in the hands of Yana and her family, only they can decide what happens next. Sierra instantly grasped everything and promised to pass the message to them. Having done his part, Botan waved his hand casually and prepared to leave. But Sierra stops him and asks herself, what, according to Asterisk, should Anna do in this situation? He froze for a moment, realizing that he was the one who saved her and thus caused this trouble. He responded simply, let her do whatever she wants until she stops herself. See. Sierra is completely confused by his sudden hesitation and asks why he suddenly doubted it. Because he says directly, the one he set out to save turned out not to be Yana, it was the VTuber Yuta. He explains, Rika said how upset Sierra was, and all that drives him is to see her smile again. This revelation literally caused a short circuit in her head. She is stunned and completely speechless. The scheme seems to scream. Sierra and Ayana were merely acquaintances from work, not close friends. When a big streamer gets into trouble, other well-known talents are expected to come together and sort out the consequences. If rescue could be bought with money, the agency would have already announced crowdfunding and sold merch to raise money for it. And this essentially means this is what remains when everything is reduced to the most important. Button honestly admitted he was only worried about her recovery and he didn't even think about anything else. Memories surface, he sees his first debut again and remembers how she and the other seniors constantly watched over and protected him. He smiled confidently and said that all this wonder was simply his way of repaying a favor. Sierra froze, completely speechless, as if her brain had left the building entirely. She stumbles over her words, mumbling that this is a bit too much for a favor, and he just raises an eyebrow and asks if she is really that surprised. Everything is attributed to one simple fact. With that charming smile, guys just love pretending they are cool. Her mouth hung open, she still couldn't utter a single word. Until her cheeks flushed and she confessed, yes, he really is cool and she is completely falling for him. Mission accomplished. Botan quickly thanks, turns around and says he will get in touch again but as soon as he steps out the door, his cool mask crumbles and he runs away, burning with shame over his banal phrases. Sierra remained alone in the corridor, still trembling from this complete emotional shock, allowing. He let out a long, weary sigh, before bursting into uncontrollable laughter and calling him a real fraud for such a trick. At that moment, Barton heard a commotion in the corridor. Someone was loudly demanding to know what was going on here. A hand grabbed him by the shoulder, but our guy just turned around with a confident expression on his face, as if whispering, well, well, well. This is a cop named Tamaki. He is furious, shouting that Barton's pulled this nonsense again. Barton smiled broadly and praised him for coming so quickly. He is immediately pulled by the hoodie, and he just looks as if it's just a minor inconvenience. In the room, Sierra just watches, completely emotionless on her face. It is clear. Of course, that was bound to happen. While Barton is being dragged away, he only repeats, all he ever wanted was to see his senpai smile. Sierra is all flushed and completely confused. She was so struck by his image of a cool guy. And when he, cheeks blazing, runs away, it only makes everything worse, and she calls him a real swindler for being so insidiously cunning. Again in the room, Yana sharply asks where Botan has gone, sharply pulling Sierra out of her dreams. Who? He explains that he will go to inform the authorities about the anomaly and call a doctor, and this stuns them both. Yana's mother tries to run away and insists that she will not allow him to take on household chores, but Sierra physically stops her. She peeks from the door and insists that she can handle the calls herself, and calling the doctor is just a convenient excuse. Sierra insists, we need to use this private moment to decide what to do next. Yana turns her head, looks her in the eyes, and for the first time calls Sierra by her real name, Futaba. The first thing she asked was a question full of sincere anxiety. Will Botan be arrested because of all this, you see? Sierra only smiled gently and assured that everything is fine. Our guy said so himself, so Anna calmed down. Ian is still worried. He doesn't know if he will return soon, and Sierra can only believe that everything will be okay. Yana clenches her bandaged fist. Her gaze is firm. It is clear that she has something in mind. Suddenly she explodes, realizing that she hasn't even properly thanked him and now almost has to fall at his feet in gratitude. Gently taking her hand, Sierra whispered that she should think about the future for now and they will think about this when he returns. Yana is tormented by guilt. She feels it is wrong to put herself first after everything he has done for her. And Sierra just smiles, as if quietly reminding her that Botan told them to do exactly that. Anna is simply stunned. She feels that he still cares about her, and because of this she is completely confused. On a convenient diagram, it was visible her attachment indicator to Botan simply exploded and flew beyond all limits, and his banal pickup lines worked a real miracle. Sierra looks with a smile, as if she knows everything. She feels that she understands this feeling too well. And Ayana sincerely admits she was saved for free from lifelong despair. Well, who wouldn't succumb to that? Cyro immediately, with shining eyes, begins enthusiastically telling Ayana about Botan, listing one after another his charms, beautiful appearance, and wonderful character. She was flustered, not knowing whether to call him cool or cute, while he was just a silly guy making a peace sign. Anna only sighs and agrees. He really is an extraordinarily good person. That is too mild a phrase, but Sierra sharply interrupts her, grabs her hand and throws out, there is something more important that we need to talk about. Without any ceremony, she directly asks Anna, What will you do now that you have recovered? A painful decision arose: to return to streaming, take a break, or leave the scene altogether. Anna is in complete shock and sharply demands an explanation as to why she should even mention retirement as an option. With tears in her eyes, she insists that as a VTuber she still has so many things she wants to do, and that she plans to return. Then Sierra picked up. This is exactly what Barton and I were just talking about in the corridor. The warning sounds like thunder. If our VTuber character Yuta returns, the internet will simply explode. Aeon is confused. She admits that she has haters but cannot understand why this time it is so radical. Sierra, smiling gently, reassures her. Most people will not hate her, on the contrary, they will be wildly happy, but there will always be a loud minority who refuse to believe in the miracle and call it a cunning trick. Wild rumors, accusations of crimes, and vile slander from jealous strangers will be poured on them. At the very heart of this wave of condemnation, one poisonous question will break out. Why were you saved? Knowing all this, Sierra asks herself if she can still confidently say that she wants to return. Anna is simply stunned and silent. The weight of that terrible reality finally hits her. Meanwhile, Tamaki literally stomps his fist into Botton's skull. He clearly can't take it anymore. Another man tries to calm him down, saying, "You're too old to get so worked up over a child." And now he's driving and yells at Botan from the back seat. Because he caused trouble again, some people never learn. Botan rudely talks back to the policeman in the car and he yells, "Shut up." This cop is Tamaki Dataru, a senior officer of the elite unit investigating underground crimes. In short, a very important person. But the superintendent is too important to personally give a ride to some boy. In the memory, the chief seems to have tied Botan to him, a constant headache he can't get rid of. Tamaki grumbles that because of Botan, he has gotten too used to being dragged on pointless searches all the time. So he insists, why did our guy decide to cause this particular international incident today? Botan suddenly flashed a dazzlingly innocent smile and declared that a miracle just happened. What's the problem? Tamaki just explodes, exposing him. He's pretending to be a fool, although he perfectly knows that Botan has top-notch evaluation skills. This is something the text confirms. His ability to evaluate is so comprehensive that it covers everything. Everything, imagine, is marked with an asterisk. Our guy just shrugged his shoulders and said indifferently, so what? For him, it was just another ordinary Tuesday. He smiles and says that the girl who suffered was saved. True, she became famous, and he does not blame her. Case closed. Tamaki only groans because it is clear. This is a happy ending, no one was hurt, and his job becomes impossible. But as soon as it became known that the miracle peach was sold as a substitute for a special potion, all services exploded in panic. He shouts that such a powerful thing was sold at the price of expensive products. Barton easily waved it off. They would still only be bought by experienced travelers. With a self-satisfied expression, he reveals his perfect loophole. Supposedly, the effect of the item is judged by the floor it came from, so all complaints immediately fall silent. A useful dungeon map reveals 6 levels from the easy upper floors all the way down to the terrible abyss. Turning on lecture mode, Botan passionately explains that the levels of explorers are directly tied to these floors. On these upper floors, mostly students with part-time jobs and amateurs who just enjoy themselves hang out. But on the middle floors, the real pros throw themselves into battle with monsters to earn a living. And only elite researchers and heavily armed special units dare to descend to the lower floors. And most importantly, essentially, nobody never goes deeper than this. Because ahead are the deep floors, a refuge for degenerates who have spat on all things human. Next come the ultra-deep floors, where our guy casually shows a peace sign like a tourist, and at the very bottom, an abyss so fierce that even he has to get serious to survive. In short, he always has a perfect excuse for everything. He sternly tells Tamaki, if you're going to pass off a thing as a potion, it must be at least from the lower floors. Even then, it is just a low-quality substitute that cannot be stored for long, so it is objectively worse. Maki definitely understands. True pros who go that deep will never carry a fragile peach instead of a real potion. Suddenly jumping up, Botan asks, where could an item of special rank like this come from? Isn't it from the ultra-deep floors, and whether? If that were the only problem with the asterisk, everything would be simple, he says with a smile that promises even more headaches. Tamaki explodes, grabs him and shouts that damn it, he knows perfectly well Botan's evaluation skill immediately notices the difference. But our guy just pointed to the rules. He was supposed to write down what is indicated in the skill certificate. But of course, he didn't even do that. So all he had left was to concoct a plausible story to put everything in its place and bam, the case is closed. Tamaki is about to burst with anger while Botan smiles and cheerfully says, we help people, so what's the problem? He is simply helping the police do what they exist for, to protect people. Less suffering is a win for everyone, right? Tamaki is yelling that the real problem is he caused an international incident on a whim for the sake of a familiar colleague. Winking mischievously, Botan smiles and asks, what else can you call helping a stranger if not a whim? Completely broken, Tamaki sighs heavily and asks, what the hell is he going to do now? And Barton just shrugged. His elder was in trouble, a peach was nearby, so he instantly grabbed it and that's it. Button speaks plainly without embellishment, but the world will never accept this as something simple. I found a story about a peach, will it be accepted? He with a smug look seems to throw in the face. I didn't break any law, so what's the problem? Tamaki just groans. He's terribly tired of how this guy skillfully walks on the edge of the law. Better to admit this than to use real smuggling, but it's still a huge headache for him. Suddenly appearing behind him, Botan boldly asked how many times he had taken that incomprehensible crap out of the bag 3-4. He boasts that he has a treasure chest and will open it only himself like a walking arsenal. To prove his point, he, as if nothing happened, pulls something out of his pocket. It is a shining pouch, an item used only by he asterisk, and which he filled with all sorts of treats. Tamaki must admit, the bag was packed full of unregistered junk, but the trick itself was formally legal. But he warns, even if it is legal, public opinion will explode with a real storm of criticism. And so Botan, as if in passing, asks if he ever told Tamaki about his little side job that he is a VTuber. Tamaki simply loses his head, loudly and passionately telling about all the troubles he went through when he debuted under a fake name. Because he is not just a researcher, he is a VTuber, and Tamaki begs him to quit it immediately. But Barton is already on the phone, says he clearly imagines how all this will unfold. Then he asks about that other person with the asterisk involved in Hyuna's accident, the one who was torn to pieces on the internet. Tamaki is completely confused. Our guy just connected several very awkward points. Button becomes serious and reminds him, now he is effectively a public figure whether he wants it or not. And Hyuna also got involved in this mess along with him. The headlines jump out at you: bribery, illegal deals, and a public trial in the media. Botan looks out the window and just sighs. This is what happens when an influential person helps someone just on a whim. Tamaki firmly insists. The excuse it's a miracle works only once, then the whole world starts shouting that it's a fraud. Botan just looks out the window and confidently says he knows perfectly well how the VTuber scene works, knowing that it is full of jealous performers who are sure the whole world revolves around them. That is exactly why Tamaki is so against it. He doesn't want our guy to have any public career. He dreams of only one thing, that Barton stays deep in the dungeons, quietly does his job, and never talks to anyone. On the back seat he has a live nuclear bomb yawning, and he screams that his reputation is ruined. This cop grumbles, saying it's just common sense. As soon as a walking disaster like Botan makes a scene, complaints will pour in one after another. Barton leaned forward and said, if everyone is already looking at him, let him take it upon himself and solve this problem head-on. He announced his grand plan with a creepily cheerful smile. Just keep streaming as if nothing happened. Tamaki doesn't fall for it for a second. He firmly demands to know what this is supposed to mean at all. With a shadowy smile, Botan warns, he will sue anyone who chases them to complete oblivion. There will be no mercy. This superintendent just sighs. He understands. Botan is going to turn the entire legal system into a weapon against internet trolls. Our guy jumps out like a good gremlin and asks if he is finally ready to cooperate. Then smiling slyly, Tamaki reminds, his job is to follow orders, not to chat about them. This drives Tamaki mad. He explodes with a scream. Why is police justice needed at all if it is just a tool for this child's drama? Botan's countermove is like a vision. He stands over a pile of bodies and, as if joking, asks if this isn't better than him losing it over slander. Completely broken, Tamaki says he doesn't care what happens to Botan, but another problem is already looming ahead. He anxiously asks about that other person who got into this mess. What is his plan to take care of Ian? Our guy just shrugged and said he will handle everything himself, but gladly handed her case over to the police instead. Taking the bait, Tamaki agrees to take everything into his own hands and promises to use his most reliable contacts to see the case through. Tamaki calls him a monster in human form. His whims can literally shake national security itself. Smiling, Barton says he will accept this gesture for now and orders the angry policeman to deliver the message. Jumping out of the car, he seemed to freeze, completely focused on Ayana's decision and what it means to her. At that moment, his phone vibrated, a new message from his elder, Sarah. He instantly opens the chat. He can't wait, wants to immediately find out what she sent him. A confident smile flashed across his face, and barely hiding his self-satisfaction, he said he was retracting his previous words. Sarah's message put the dots on the I. Iana publicly declared that she wants to remain a VTuber. She is ready to accept criticism and will not back down. She will not abandon either fans or friends. At the end of the message, her VTuber persona sincerely asks him, please give them your support. And so it was announced to the whole world. Yuta is returning, and the stream of his return is already scheduled. The shot sharply switches to Botan. He is already in his stream, in VTuber attire, cheerfully greeting the viewers. In his chat flows a real waterfall of praise. Everyone thanks the Mountain Lord for the miracle. He even laughed and jokingly said that he never imagined that an ordinary healthy snack could lead to a full recovery. The official story is this. Supposedly, they found a marvelous peach with unknown healing powers, and apparently it fell from the sky. He almost chuckles as he tells how the Researchers Association was forced to recognize peaches as almost medicine. He honestly admits this whole announcement really shook his nerves and brought a huge headache. Meanwhile, another VTuber sits at the stream, and with a warm smile says that Yuta's return is a rare happy ending in their world. After that incident, his channel literally took off into space fame and subscriber count skyrocketed. He thinks this saga is incredibly crazy, it would make a good book, from the accident to the amazing finale, but his chat is already ready for battle, swearing never to forgive those haters who started this. On his stream, Button sharply put an end to it. Those who made this mess will definitely be held accountable. Then he asks his chat not to send him money, these donations are for Ayana, so that she returns. He says he is not in trouble at all, just some guy who got dragged into that strange miracle that happened to his friend. Meanwhile, Iroha Jin, another VTuber involved in the accident, is currently experiencing his moment. He tightly grips the microphone in his stream and stubbornly insists that he has nothing to do with it at all. Now that the truth has finally come out, he is fighting hard to clear his name. But Botan does not take this at all. He orders his fans to give every last cent they were going to gift him instead to Iani. His chat explodes with praise. They call him a hero, and he only blushes and cries from embarrassment. Brushing them off, he shouted to everyone, "Get out of his stream and go watch Yuta's return." He smiled gently and told them, "Go and properly welcome your idol at home." And then he finally reveals his main plan. The whole stream was just a bait to keep everyone occupied. In fact, he is not watching her stream at all, just listening while fiddling with his equipment. Because his channel is only about making snacks, while the real show is happening somewhere completely different. His chat instantly sorts everything out. He covers the situation and then takes care of the people. That's a legend. So he announces the real plan for the evening, his asthma when he fries chicken skin for a snack. He listens with every cell of his body. Her stream will start any moment. The clock struck exactly 9 in the evening. The time has come. And on her channel, Yuta steps onto the huge stage and, gathering all her courage, asks her fans if they can hear her voice. Botan just smiles while the chat explodes. He knows she is starting her comeback with an emotional anime song. He literally wipes away tears while the chat excitedly says that the song is about the miraculous return of a forgotten heroine, and it's the perfect choice. Yuta pours every drop of her soul into this song as if shouting, "Don't forget me." Her eyes are wide open, in them is pure, sincere determination. She does not back down for a second, and she is on stage, a beacon of confidence, making it clear to everyone, "I am here and I am staying." The chat in Botan is already breaking everything down and enthusiastically calls this song absolutely perfect for a comeback stream. And the lyrics literally say, "I have returned to really emphasize this, you know." She commands the viewers not to take their eyes off her and to burn this performance into their memory forever. On his stream, Botan said with a smirk that the live performance impresses less than anime, but he understands the essence. An incredibly satisfied smile blooms on his face, and he simply soaks it all in. In his chat, there is simply an explosion of emotions because of Yuta's performance. People are going crazy, saying she is in a completely different dimension. And on top of that, he proudly boasted he just crossed 800,000 subscribers, a nice bonus for causing an international incident. He glanced at the phone and got a little confused. The chat suddenly started worrying about him. He happily explains that his stream is just background music for her broadcast while he fries crispy chicken skin, and his chat is not impressed at all. He just slammed the lid on the pot, and the chat is roasting him for even pretending like their opinion matters to him. He is acting as if making a move of a supportive guy from the shadows, isn't he? His chat is a real chaos. Some understand it, others call him tender, but everyone agrees he reliably keeps the risks under control. He grabs a knife and loudly announces, "Now we really start this culinary stream." He calmly heats the sidewalk so much that it literally glows, and his chat just screams in horror. And then, unhurriedly, prepare some ginger and green onions. They will come in handy for the pan. He starts cutting ingredients at superhuman speed, and the chat is shocked. This is only possible in the world of Mango. Just a moment and he found himself embarrassed, even when he insisted. His chat knew only he could pull that off. So when everything is settled, Botan happily explains what the main event of today's stream is. He suddenly finds out that the main ingredient is the skin of a lower-level chicken monster, and his chat is just blown away by how huge it is. Admitting that he dropped it in some sand while collecting it, our guy simply calmly and quickly washes it off. Viewers in the chat joke that it's the size of a doormat, and he just smiles, calls it brave cooking, and says paper towels are not needed. To make it clear to everyone, he decides to post a photo of the chicken on Twitter. It turns out to be a terrible giant monster, like a phoenix, and fans are even more scared that he was so calm he even managed to take a photo. Now that everyone is aware, he asks if they are ready for him to start cooking this nightmare bird. Simply throw the skin and some fragrant ingredients into a hot wok and watch the fat melt away. His chat is in shock how simple it is, and Botan is just happy that they are catching on, explaining that rendered chicken fat is a real cheat code for incredible ramen and fried rice. The food is already cooking, and he comfortably settles in front of the screen to watch Yuta's stream she is about to perform with a guest. And on her channel, she is already standing on stage with two other VTubers, and shining with excitement, announces that their next song is a trio. Three of them froze in a pose like a real idol group, ready to conquer the stage. Yuta simply electrifies, pouring all her energy into the performance, pulling. She performs dance moves with incredible dynamics and loudly sings the song. When she steps onto the stage, her presence is undeniable. She completely captures the audience's attention. Returning to the kitchen, Barton stands completely mesmerized and quietly whispers to himself, "How incredible she is." This performance was called nothing less than stunning. The silhouette of the trio was reflected in her burning eyes. Again standing by the stove, he thoughtfully reflects. The pro has such crazy video and sound equipment that he can't compete with it. Suddenly his chat exploded with screams, "Stop, this is dangerous." It turned out the real danger was Barton, who indifferently stuck his hand into boiling oil, and his chat just lost their minds. He laughs and cheerfully explains that an ordinary person would definitely get a serious burn from this. But our guy is completely calm. He says such heat is not even noticeable to him, to the great horror of his chat. After he so easily proved that fire does him no harm, he carelessly pours out the monster's rendered lard. Here he has a flawless bowl of what he calls tyrannical chicken oil, ready to be bottled. He starts to puzzle over how much to ask, but the chat mercilessly tears him apart, saying only a refined wine could have such a price. Returning from the walk, he simply shrugged and said, as if it should be so, "The market will decide the price itself, and meanwhile he will make the snack crispy." His chat still cannot comprehend his wealth, and some simply beg to find out how unrealistically rich he really is. One commentator says, "One look at Botan's attitude was enough. It became clear that the rumors about his and Yuta's quarrel over money were complete nonsense." But another fan retorts, "How can one disprove the story that he accidentally gave her an item worth a fortune?" Seeing a comment he didn't like, Botan decides, it's time to put all the dots over and before everyone watching. He enthusiastically explains that in the deepest dungeons hide items whose value is literally measured in billions rare metals and legendary potions. Suddenly he becomes completely serious, points at the screen, and firmly says that this incident is in no way connected to Iroha Jin. He is fed up with this, so he is about to bring down the hammer on the user just for even suggesting it. When the problematic commentator was instantly deleted, he just smiles and announces that talks about money are officially over. Meanwhile, in her stream, Yuta seems to glow with pure joy, completely immersed in the song. Button smiles, lifts the bowl with crispy fried chicken skin, and happily says he has tasty food and a cool show, so life is just perfect. He proudly presents the last dish, a full plate of crispy golden brown monster skin, AF. Just a final pinch of salt, and his best snack for the streamer is officially ready. He lifts a piece and loudly declares that the crispy skin is the best part, and the chat wholeheartedly agrees with him. His chat is in a frenzy over the finished product. Everyone is going crazy and shouting for someone to bring drinks immediately. At the first bite, Button decides not to complicate things, just a little salt to start. He brings the crispy monster skin to his lips to finally taste it, and in that moment of pure concentration, the whole world around simply disappears. The verdict is delivered. It is so incredibly crispy and tasty that he just flies high. He, beaming with delight, explains how all the excess fat melted away, leaving the perfect juicy crunch. Our guy can't stop eating. He says it's as light as a chip, while his chat enjoys his heavy breathing. He throws a sly smile and turns away from the camera for a second. Then he takes out the perfect companion for the fried dish, an ice-cold golden can of beer that rings with coldness. He uncorks it with a pleasant hiss. It's a sign the real party is about to start. "This combination is pure bliss," he exclaims, while the chat calls him a food terrorist for the temptation. He takes a sip and sternly warns the viewers, "Don't copy me, my body, is superhuman." So that no one doubts, he could drink liters of pure grain alcohol and not die. For him, it was just another Tuesday. He dips a piece into the spicy sweet sauce, and with a smile says the taste is simply a crime. It seems a bit of green onion on top, and voila, another winning combination. He is just enjoying himself, gulping beer, chewing fried skin, and feeling like a true king on the throne. Then he simply and confidently says, "Expensive alcohol is not necessarily the best choice for every dish." Indeed, he has a cellar at home full of priceless alcohol made from dungeon offspring. But this moment is about something else entirely. He insists, holding up his simple tin can. He says when the food is so tasty, its flavor alone is incredibly strong and assertive. He clenches his fist and says tensely, "The taste of such power will simply crush all the weaker ones." And trying to balance this with some trendy drink means simply wasting the entire flavor of this dish. At such a moment, he says without hesitation, A simple can of beer is the absolute perfect combination. His chat like a sponge absorbs this while he explains. As long as it tastes good, nothing else matters. Meanwhile, on her stream, Yuta sings at the top of her lungs like an angel and shines with happiness. This instantly illuminated Botan with a smile. He says the most important thing is simply to enjoy the food, the drink, and the moment itself. The pile of empty cans grows larger and larger, and he stubbornly insists that bringing anything else to the party is complete nonsense. But suddenly he froze. Something appeared on the laptop screen that completely threw him off track. Suddenly an incoming call lit up on his screen, and he had no idea who it could be. Somewhere else someone is wildly pounding on the keyboard, diving into the legends of this matter. A thread exploded on the forum. A new fan enthusiastically asks how incredibly strong Botan really is. These answers are essentially an alarming report on the threat to national security. He is an army in one body. He should not be a VTuber. Others already call him a true savior because he so skillfully arranged a happy ending for Yuta and the most interesting, the only public comment from Botan sounded like this. She called Iroha Jin lucky, and it simply shocks everyone. From the shadows, another VTuber peeks and laughs how entertaining it all looks. It turns out she is the one calling him. Her name brightly lights up on the screen, Yamanyushi Botan. What? Suddenly, a tiny chibi version of her jumps out of the pipe in his kitchen and asks for a 3D collab. He barely agrees, and she bursts with joy, celebrating as if she just won the lottery. Kicking her legs, she passionately explains that she is insanely a fan of superplays and always wanted to see one live. She came up close, looked him in the face, and insisted, this needs to be scheduled as soon as possible before he gets buried in a pile of work. Botan pretends his sudden fame is worthless, but Yamanyushi is already looking over his shoulder, all excited. A sharp cut, and there is no doubt. Yes, his circle of acquaintances has officially become too complicated. Yamanyushi saw live how Yuta's fans practically created a religion, making him their god. He tries to calm down. The call to Yuta is nothing serious, just an everyday trifle. The call suddenly knocked on you in the middle of the performance, by the way, really cool, dude. Returning to the present moment, he begins to lay out the plan for their joint stream, and she trembles with excitement. The plan is simple. A cooking stream in the dungeon, practically almost a repeat of the collab he already did. She winked and threw out. His last guest, by the way, received extraordinarily rare top-grade ingredients. She just waved it off, saying everything is fine, and as the old saying goes, nothing is scarier than free. When everything is decided, Botan with a dramatic gesture pulls out a huge bag ready for the main event. He shows a giant piece of orc meat in Yamnu. His head is spinning with joy. She froze in amazement. He brought such an exquisite ingredient, and he just shrugged as if it was nothing. He says that this is really the cheapest meat you can get from the dungeon, and she is just shocked. The demand for it is simply crazy. Ordinary people can hardly get it. He says when researchers stake their lives for these things, their price will always be very high. Yamanyushi understands this well. If the reward is not worth the real threat of death, no one will go hunting. To truly get elite ingredients, you'll have to shell out a lot of money. This is a real luxury market. She notices in internet videos, orcs are constantly shown as a threat only to beginners, so they seem less dangerous. Botan asks if she has seen at least one of those clips. She nods and says she knows them well. So what is her impression of the orc? She says, like just a humanoid pig, a quite reasonable assumption. Botan gently corrects her and shows a useful diagram. They are not pigs but wild boars. Thank you very much. Then he asks what, in her opinion, an amateur researcher is like, and she simply says, they are just a bit weaker than him. Our guy burst out laughing, called it a complete miss, puffed out his chest and boasted as if he were at the highest level. He clarifies, even the most famous streamers who explore dungeons are all considered elite. He says with a sparkle in his voice, the average amateur researcher in physical fitness is no worse than the best professional athlete. Yamanyushi is in complete shock. He doesn't believe that researchers can really be that incredible. But Botan only smiles sinisterly and says, for a researcher, this is not impressive at all. On that convenient pyramid, everything is visible. For ordinary people, the top athlete is just the tip, and the dungeon is a completely different league. She still can't come to her senses and whispers, is this true even for amateurs? After all, they fight monsters. He decisively says that the rookie orcs they encounter are much more dangerous than a wild bear. It's a pack of muscular beasts the size of adult humans who will desperately try to kill you. Down here, the title of Olympic champion means nothing, so Yamanyushi was completely confused. He answered simply wisdom, courage, and a bit of that enhancement magic straight from fantasy RPG. It's like a real video game in real life. You kill monsters, become stronger, and cross human limits. Turning the lecture to the present, he energetically waved his hand toward a huge piece of meat on the counter. For a moment, he becomes completely serious and says that as a streamer, he has a duty to convey to everyone. Orcs are no joke. Yamanyushi immediately bowed and apologized for knowing nothing, and he just waved it off and said not to worry. He burst out laughing and said, if some rookie believed the internet and got crushed, it's his own fault, and Yamanyushi was horrified. After this magical lesson about personal responsibility, he finally dared to suggest cooking and eating orc meat. She asks what's on the menu, and he sincerely says, "In the studio, I'm only limited by the stove. I can only make what works on it." Botan suggests preparing shabu shabu, and Yamanouchi instantly picks up this idea. She looks over the counter. It is clear that she hesitates a little. In front of us is a mountain of orc meat, and she says that for hot pot it's a bit too much, but well, it's a gift for the staff. The chat in the stream goes crazy again, shouting for the team members to step back. They want to see the food. Button explains. He gives the staff simple preparations and places them in front of a handheld camera where they work under enormous pressure. While they fuss over that, he takes on the main task personally, cutting open a giant piece of meat. Yamnashi's eyes shine with admiration. Finally, the super combination she begged to see begins. At first he says the stove is too big to handle and grabs a knife, as if for a giant. With one clean move without a single mistake, he slices the entire huge piece of meat in half. He casually slides one of his pieces to the team, saying, "This is your share," and the chat explodes with cries of envy. Botan stands in front of the ready portion and thoughtfully considers how to cut it so it looks best. He decisively decides, since he's already putting on a show, no sloppiness. Yamanouchi looks with a self-satisfied smile, thinking that it is better for him to perform well enough to satisfy his senpai. So he decides to slice. As for sashimi, sacrificing some speed for the sake of pure art, and Yamanouchi is simply stunned. She is completely stunned and says with delight, "Every movement looks as if performed by a true master." Yamanouchi adds that his usual cooking style is a true elusive blur of movements. But Barton decides that this method does not work, and sharply changes his approach, tossing the meat into the air. Suddenly, his eye is covered with a mesh pattern, as if he became a live wire for a super-modern kitchen food processor. In an impossible gleam of steel, he slices everything in the air into perfectly thin, paper-like strips with one motion. Yamanouchi's brain completely exploded. Her eyes literally turned into the hieroglyph meat. The meat falls onto the plate and lines up into perfect, identical shiny slices, a true work of art. Yamanouchi is simply stunned, says that seeing him in action means reaching a completely different level. Then the incredible aroma of shabu shabu broth suddenly envelops them, a true paradise. While the hot pot bubbles cheerfully, the waiters carry mountains of dishes to the table, all for the great banquet. They both tremble with excitement, hands clasped, ready to rush. Yamanouchi asks about dipping sauces, with hope in his voice for classic ponzu, which would perfectly suit the dish. Of course, our guy has her covered. He pulls out a bottle like a true pro. When they found out, they both go crazy for ponzu. It exploded into a very fierce, very strange, festive arm wrestling battle. He asks if she wants rice and she bursts out, "Of course, no way without rice." But this is not just any rice, it's perfectly steamed, shining, a bowl of pure white deliciousness. Next, drinks, and Botan casually pulls out from the pouch that little surprise he brought with him. From that tiny bag, as if from a magic pouch, a whole store of alcohol spills out. Beer, wine, whiskey, anything. She asked for a specific, expensive shochu, and he just reaches for the top shelf of the fridge and pulls out a huge bottle from there. But Minyu, she is all in a panic, asking if she can really choose something so expensive, and he simply says, "You like it." She clenches her fists and shouts that she just loves it, and the whole chat rejoices. The girl was practically in religious ecstasy over that bottle of liquor. He offers her ice, but she is a true purist. She drinks this legendary beverage only neat. Botan himself took a sip, and overcome with passion, launched into a tirade about how one should enjoy the pure, undiluted flavor. And all this just to immediately grab a can of beer for himself, because priorities, probably. And together the whole team and staff raised their glasses to a well-deserved cheers. Just one sip and Yamanouchi is on cloud nine, saying her day has already been a success. Botan teases her, saying she has already eaten enough before the main course, but she insists the broth is really that tasty. Without wasting a second, our guy shouts that he will start first, and instantly grabs a piece of meat. He precisely dips the orc meat into the ponzu sauce so that it is nicely coated. Then the pro's signature move, one quick tap on the rice so it absorbs all that deliciousness. The first bite is striking. He completely immerses himself in a world of pure culinary bliss. The flavor is complex. The tender sweetness of the meat is perfectly balanced by rich, spicy fat, and the sharp acidity of the ponzu cuts through it all and leaves a crystal clear finish. As soon as you add fluffy white rice to that combination, an incredible explosion of flavor happens. Finally, her turn comes, and Yamanouchi simply loses her head, exclaiming with delight, "What an incredible thing." Even the workers are devouring it, and Botan, with a self-satisfied expression, reminds everyone that they are savoring a truly expensive treat. She just shoves it into herself, and she is completely speechless from that incredible deliciousness. What impressed her the most was that this is the lowest rank food from the dungeon, yet it is so tasty. Meanwhile, Yuta watches from afar, truly worried by the thought that someone's taste sensations are now spoiled forever. Another VTuber is also watching, and a little upset her senpai is only experiencing this now. Returning to the studio, Yamanyushi gulps down the drink, shining with happiness and satisfaction the collaboration was successfully completed. A few days later, a new VTuber, all in notes, checks the sound before her stream. She says her name is Senaku, and silently behind her stands a man who looks like her producer, with. She looks directly at the viewers with a gentle, almost all-knowing smile ready to start. Then we see her next to a stern man in uniform, loudly announcing the opening of Senaku's palace. We jump back in time and before us is the avatar of VTuber Bon, self-satisfied and ready for a big external collab. A moment before the stream, Yamanyushi's phone suddenly rang. On the other end was manager Kasa. He nervously answers, names himself, and with a trembling voice asks if she has a minute to talk. On the other end of the line, his manager says, "I have news about the external collaboration project." Botan instantly blossomed with excitement and immediately asked if they had finally agreed on all the details. She only formally apologized for the delay, and in her voice from head to toe there was pure business-like tone. She is also sorry that the corporation interferes in his affairs and essentially limits his streams, but he just waved it off. Our guy immediately understood everything. He is here on behalf of the company, and after recent problems they now have to think about profit. When he says problem, he actually means a complete firestorm with Yuta that has finally begun to subside. So he allowed the management to choose his next partner, but doubts still swirl in his head. His manager confesses, her heart aches when she sees him being held back like this. Suddenly something clicked in him. He understood her anxiety. She fears that this is preventing him from moving toward his true goals. He barely smiles and frankly admits, yes, making more ambitious collabs is his biggest dream as a VTuber. A dream in which he teamed up with his idol Lemon, and together they created insanely crazy underground food. But he calmly tells her, "I'm in no rush and completely agree to move slowly with this future collaboration with Sakai." He even jokes because everyone tells him that he is too impulsive, always rushing forward like a wild boar. Moreover, he confidently says, a regular stream is not the goal. His real aim is a large-scale offline collaboration with Asterisk. The manager points to a huge obstacle that requires trust, and after that fiasco his reputation is just down the drain. She explains as if laying out cards. Personal trust and corporate rules are completely different things, and so far he has only worked with his own agency. Botan just asks her not to worry. He is simply having fun and also earning some extra money. His manager Kasai hangs up and assures that he will immediately send the documents for the collaboration. Button confirms receipt of the letter without taking his eyes off the screen, and the plan finally takes shape. And now his VTuber avatar begins to explain how all that past led exactly to this moment. And next, the very collab hosted by the incredibly energetic VTuber Senaku in her show Senaku's Palace. She, glowing with excitement, explains the plan for today, a QA session with a bunch of other streamers she gathered. In front of her stood 4 guys in the VTuber world. They were known as the most chaotic of all. But the broadcast instantly went haywire when the sound mysteriously cut out for 2 of them, and Senaku froze in complete confusion. The guy in military uniform is just panicking. He's having a real panic attack, and the wireless mouse died at the worst possible moment. Meanwhile, the winged VTuber in sunglasses just froze, staring into space and giving no explanations, until he turned the sound back on and suddenly announced that his delivery just arrived, holding up a fast food bag in the middle of the stream. The other guests immediately pounced on him for ordering delivery during the live broadcast, a purely pro-gamer move. The nerd is just basking in this beautiful chaos, believing that this chaotic energy is the essence of great collabs. He was a bit touched. He realized that for the first time he truly felt part of this world. Another guest froze in amazement. He admits he's their fan and can't believe this is really happening. Poor Senaku is trying her best to calm the flow after that messy start. She cheerfully opens the official introductions. The first guest looks like a cute magical girl, but imagine, it's actually a middle-aged man. Next, a winged guy who calls himself an incorrigible gambler and lives for chaos. This soldier, sincerely apologizing, adds, he is a real walking magnet for technical disasters. After the first 3 performances, Senaku theatrically waved his hand and called his last guest, and that is. Here is our Botan. He was assigned the status of a super newbie, although he is both a streamer and a true dungeon explorer. Senaku confessed, she has long been a fan of Botan, so that is exactly why she personally invited him to the collab. She then says she looked at him and suddenly realized he is a complete idiot, and the other guests just, aha, obviously. She laughs and happily admits that the whole panel is a bunch of idiots, and no one even tries to argue. This soldier is sincerely confused, asking is he really that chaotic, but Senaku has already seen the evidence. Oh yes, there are entire collections of moments when his equipment fails, and streams die in the middle of the broadcast, a true natural disaster. This gambling guy smiles and reassures him. Supposedly, his constant failures are actually a powerful feature in this business. He pulls him into the whirlpool of his wild life, an offer that carries a great risk of bankruptcy. The soldier is still confused and stubbornly insists that he is not that weirdo with a star, while his new mentor quietly whispers sweet words about duty. Botan is enjoying this crazy chaos, but suddenly realizes that the conversation has unexpectedly turned to him. Tanaku reviews her notes and confidently says with a slight smile, "Judging by his answers before the show, Botan is undoubtedly the craziest here." She completely loses her head and in a frightened tone asks if he is serious, and our guy just laughs, confirming that every crazy word of his is true. Everything is decided, she announces Botan as the loud finale of the QA session. She admits never before has a guest challenged her so much in the role of hostess, and she is delighted. A pure crazy joy shone on her face as she prepared to dive into madness. With a dramatic hand gesture, she displays the first question for the panel on the giant screen. The question is simple: what have you bought most recently? Button, knowing he is last, thought with a slight self-satisfied smile that he really had nothing to tell about big purchases. Tanaku starts. He calls the magical girl holding a whiteboard. She finally made a big purchase, a brand new high-end microphone created specifically for her ASMR streams. Button immediately asks how much it costs, and she freezes for a moment, already ready to lower the price. She names the price a whole 200,000 yen, and the other guys just lose their heads. After this explosive statement, Sanaka, as if nothing happened, calmly moves on to the next guest, a military dude. He proudly boasts that his big purchase is a super powerful PC, bought right before the debut, but then immediately apologizes for his boring and overly practical answer, and this annoys Sanaka like crazy. That passionate guy tries hard to calm him down, saying the PC is totally normal, and the other people are weird. So he ends up full of apologies, while Sanaka exposes him as a pathetic suck-up. Impressed, she looks at the enthusiast and basically calls him the next weirdo in line. And this dude, delighted, happily admits he spent 2 million yen on a lucky pack during a gacha stream. Tanaka is completely shocked he spent that much on collectible cards, but stubbornly says, one lucky pull will pay it all off. The rest of the panel just can't understand how someone can be so financially irresponsible for a hobby. Even Botan, who plays the same game in the app, laughs watching how all this got out of control. Tanaka raises the microphone to Betten and throws it to the audience. His answer makes him way crazier than everyone here. Suddenly our guy realizes this whole question is a setup trap to put him in an awkward position at the very end. Tanaku still couldn't believe what she had read, so, not trusting her eyes, she asked him to confirm that he really recorded it. His answer appears on the screen: 2 studios, and even images of 2 entire buildings. The whole panel was just twisted when one guest literally told him, "Speak Japanese," because it made no sense. Tanaku asks again, does this mean he took them on a long-term lease? Batten replies indifferently, no, I bought them. He says he came across a place where under one roof there was a kitchen studio and a music studio, so he just bought it. She is just screaming now, unable to comprehend that in a fit of impulse he just bought 2 studios. Button just shrugs and says it's not such a big deal, not like buying a whole new outfit or something like that. This gambling guy loses his head, shakes Button and shouts about hundreds of millions he just lost. He calmly, as if about a trifle, explains, booking time in a studio for dubbing and singing is a real nightmare with scheduling. Having your own cozy corner where you can drop by at any moment is much more convenient, a truly simple solution. This military man without hesitation directly asks Button, maybe he's a little out of his mind. Our guy just calls it a capital investment, while others insist that they are not cheap, it's simply beyond all limits. When the magical girl asks why he does it, Button just smiles and admits that he is fully aware of his problem. He believes in simple logic. Money in the bank is to be spent, and when there is enough, the balance barely moves. Now this gambler, his biggest fan, admits that he always wanted to say that phrase about an infinite bank account. Then he grabbed Barton by the head and, trembling, begged him to say no, Chan, if he dies, the last request of a true freak. Finally, Sanako jumps into the conversation and asks the real question. The cooking studio for his streams is understandable, but why does he need a music studio? With a creepily cheerful smile, Barton simply says that it was essentially a freebie that came with the house. Ignoring all streaming rules, Sanako boldly and directly asked him, how much money does he really have? The camera slowly raises its gaze to his laptop. On the screen is the bank balance, showing a number with 13 digits. The entire panel froze simultaneously, their brains produced a blue screen, and could not process so many zeros. Tanaku screams, asking if he is real. She has never before even seen a number with that many digits. Those 2 now fall to their knees, call him the Oil King, and fervently apologize for ever doubting him. It turns out, this is just the profit from selling 1 rejuvenation potion that he obtained in the dungeon. It was bought up at the auction for 15 trillion. He was basking in his own success, thinking that although the topic was a real sensation, it definitely added drive to the stream. This gambler immediately tries to take over the stream and loudly shouts to Sanako, drop the plan and just interview the billionaire. Confused and unable to argue, Sanako simply explodes with a shout of shut up, and this outburst seems to restart the show. Tanaku, physically pinning down the soldier, loudly announces the rules of the next round. You answer first, and then the big reveal With a theatrical gesture, she raised her voice and asked, "Who here on this panel is the coolest person?" The eager guy is completely confused, he doesn't know where to start, and the soldier stubbornly says that he is the absolute bottom. Meanwhile, the magical girl proudly exclaims that she had no problem answering, full confidence, zero shame. This soldier guy asks if they all agreed on their answers, and the magical girl just winks and says, "It was total chaos." In response, Botan simply raises a photo of his cute cat Kaneko-kun, and everyone's hearts immediately melt. This magical girl immediately shouted that using a cat is like cheating in our joint stream. Suddenly, the soldier recognizes the cat, unable to contain his surprise, exclaims, "Is this the very famous cat from that incident?" And then he looks stunned at this incredibly simple name Kaneko-kun, which literally means Mr. Kitten. Botan simply explains, when he found him he kept calling Kitten and the name just stuck. Enchanted by the cuteness, the charming girl dreams of cat ears, but the gambler reminds her that she already has mouse ears. Suddenly it all comes down to her calling Sanaku mom, and immediately a loud "I'm not your mom" erupts. Calming the chaos, Sanaku announces collectedly that they are moving on to the last question of the day. The screen suddenly flickers with a new prompt: "What's your freshest, biggest screw-up?" This gambling guy instantly declares, this is an obvious trap to squeeze embarrassing gossip out of the newbies. But the soldier completely misunderstood this. He saluted, taking off his hat as a sign of respect to the supposedly caring Sanaku, poor guy. The witch admits, Botan's answers are so crazy that she saved them for last, and it made everyone nervous. And here is the first mishap right on the screen. I dozed off just when I was planning this stream. Everyone agrees this is a classic streamer mistake, a real sin that instantly tramples your professional reputation. Sanaku dramatically points at the panel and loudly demands to know, who is to blame among them. This magical girl proudly raised her hand and completely without shame admitted, "It was me who overslept." It turns out that the same enthusiastic guy did it too, but the magical girl blames it all on a dead phone battery, saying the alarm didn't go off. Next on the board of shame, I lost my wallet, and the soldiers started sweating like mad. And here comes the player's mistake. He bet on the wrong horse because he filled out the coupon incorrectly, a true degenerate moment. Sanaku explains his logic. By the method of elimination, he concluded that this mistake in the gambling game had to belong to him. She announces with a devilish smile, "Finally, the time has come for the main event, Botan's failure." This magical girl, completely frightened, held her breath and anxiously awaits that crazy answer that is about to be heard. Botan remains calm as a cucumber, as if saying, "Come on, make your chaos." Our poor soldier stands bewildered. He doesn't understand why everyone is so worried about one seemingly simple question. Sanaku, with a gesture full of pure uncontrollable joy, is ready to show the world Botan's answer. Suddenly, the screen reveals his biggest mistake, heart failure, and nothing else. Everyone in this frame just goes crazy and asks in horror, is this some sick joke? But Botan is called to explain how he can look too calm when the guy just confessed that he died. The magical girl desperately looks for any excuse, hoping that all this is just a cruel joke for the stream. But our guy with a joyful smile claims, this is completely real and he even has proof to prove it. Then, as if in passing, he offers to show them a photo of his real torn-out heart, and indifferently adds that he feels better. We are shown a short flashback. He just pours potion on his chest to fix the whole matter with the missing heart. When asked why he has the photo, he simply replied that he documents his adventures, and Sanaku immediately called it psychobehavior. Then he admits, he keeps the old heart in a jar like a museum exhibit, showing the scar would be strange. Tanaka just explodes, "So am I crazy here?" and the whole frame answers in chorus, yes. No, this is now their shared trauma. This avid player finally throws the millennial question. How can Botan be so indifferent to the fact that his heart will be torn out? In his world, Botan says that fatal wounds are just another ordinary Tuesday in the dungeons. And then he begins to tell about that fateful day when he went on a small expedition. We stand at the entrance to a dark, ominous cave, a classic start for any bad day. In the memory, we see him racing for his life, and a crowd of monsters breathing down his neck. Throwing a quick glance over his shoulder, you see, he has already taken several hits but still holds firmly ahead. And ahead, a huge, terrible single boss leading the assault, and that never promises anything good. This monster unleashes a devastating attack with one incredibly powerful swing. It strikes downward. The look. A real shock fell on the nerd when he realized he had made a critical mistake that would turn his whole life upside down. The fist of this Oni passed through him, and his heart literally fell out. He forgot to hide it, the slap of all time. He cheerfully retells that fatal mistake, and the soldier looks as if he saw a ghost. Meanwhile, the gambler laughs wildly. This whole story seems incredibly funny to him. This magical girl is just trying to understand the basics of biology and sincerely asks, don't people just die without a heart? And Botan only smugly says, Surprisingly, this is not yet the instant end of the game. Then he quickly explains, the heart is just a pump and you can temporarily manage without it. So she asks, did he immediately use a potion to stop the bleeding since that is the only logical step? No, he counterattacked the boss, finished the fight, and then casually patched a huge hole in his chest. Tanaku is simply speechless. He says that any normal person after such an experience would be traumatized for life but hours. And our guy just laughs, saying you won't become an adventurer if you let such a trifle as death bother you. He strikingly posed and said, you are not a real pro until you have died at least once. This soldier simply begs everyone, don't think that all researchers are like this monster who so easily rises from the dead. Tanaku tries to sum up this complete disaster the story they just heard. She officially says that like ordinary people, they are simply unable to comprehend Barton's reality, so they just give up. Everyone agrees digging deeper means uncovering even more unclean chaos. They are not ready for that. Finally, Sanaku presses the on-air button, and the craziest collaboration in history is officially over. Everyone on camera finally breathed a huge sigh of relief, just happy to have survived the broadcast. A new girl in punk rock style with a raised eyebrow asks if they might have overdone it a bit, since Sanaku looks completely exhausted. And I just smiled brightly at Sanaku and said that it was a wonderful confusion and totally worth it, because she was the one who invited him. This soldier admitted that the stream was really memorable, and the gambler added that Barton simply stole the whole show. Barton just shrugged indifferently as if calmly saying, it happens when he's around. And then he cheerfully suggests that they all arrange a collab again soon, and the gambler is simply shocked by this. Looking at the screen, the player was stunned. Now he is friends with the entire panel for the first time outside his usual circle. He quietly and happily whispered, yes, clearly showing that he is really pleased with the new acquaintances he made. Our gambler is sincerely touched. He says he found a new friend and can't wait for their next stream. This touching moment instantly dissipates when he gets excited and shouts that next time they need to be even crazier. After some time, the player was again at his desk and took a work call. On the other end of the line was none other than Botan. Suddenly, the same punk girl Hanabi bursts into the call, shouts Botan, and scares the player. She, with a sparkle in her voice, tells another girl how wild the last collab was, calling Botan's performance a real blast. The other, quiet girl with pigtails barely lifts her eyes from the book and looks completely confused by this conversation. She is already in a panic, her voice trembling, demanding to know what video Linky is preparing and what is going on here at all. Hanabi cheerfully admits she just wanted to see their reactions live purely for fun. The girl with braids is already completely losing it. She screams and demands to know when this stream even started. And in the next shot, Barton's solo stream, where he gladly and smilingly greets viewers in the long-awaited cooking segment. He is now live from his new home studio and says that this is the very studio from that infamous collaboration. After a cute loading screen, the scene smoothly slides into his brand new kitchen. Standing in the glow of a professional kitchen, he smiled and announced that today's menu is a simple egg dish. And by simple, he means using an egg the size of a damn watermelon. The chat just explodes. This giant egg is a real monster drop, and his viewers are already racking their brains trying to guess where it came from. It turns out it is from the hegemonic cockerel, and he even adds a photo of this terrible creature. Then, holding the giant egg like a proud father, he addresses the audience and asks, what should I make from it? He, with a devilish smile, says he will cook a classic fried egg on toast, a champion's breakfast. This instantly ignites a fierce debate in the chat about the right seasoning for eggs, a true holy war. Then Botan, as if he doesn't care, adds fuel to the fire, starting a completely off-topic argument about snacks. Enjoying the chaos he created himself, he clicks again on a cooking stream on his laptop. Ingredients lined up on the table: monster egg, bread, margarine, and a few simple seasonings. Lifting the margarine, he seems about to throw another provocative question into the audience. He gently noted that butter is also an option, it's just a matter of taste. And then he asks how many people actually prefer margarine and again stirs up a hornet's nest. The verbal war flared so wildly that the chat officially nicknamed him the Firestarter. Finally, back on track, he takes a knife and cuts a comically thick slice of bread. At first, he puts several ridiculously thick slices of bread into the toaster oven to add texture. Then he takes out a huge wok blazing with heat for the main event, the fried egg. Instead, he takes a fresh tub of soft margarine instead of cooking oil. With a truly wild smile, he throws into the chat how much, in their opinion, he will use it. And then he throws a whole brand new bar into the frying pan, and the chat is already buzzing about calories. The nerd calmly talks about his special way of cooking this egg. It turns out it's not just frying. He actually picked up an internet life hack, pouring hot oil over the egg while it cooks. For some reason, he is now in a bird mask and is straining to recall its exquisite European name. This margarine has already become a boiling pool of liquid death, and he says it looks good. The oil is ready. He, unhurriedly, carefully lowers the heat on the stove. Finally, it's time to put the monster egg on the frying pan, and the whole chat freezes, holding their breath. He gently lowers the egg so as not to splash the liquid hot edge around. The huge egg slaps onto the frying pan, majestically sizzles, and the chat explodes with delight. He enthusiastically explains, as if revealing a secret, this pouring method is the secret to a perfectly runny yolk. In the tiny diagram, you can see how hot oil is spooned on top, and the dish gently finishes cooking without overdoing it. For such a gigantic egg, he says, it won't work otherwise, either raw on top or burnt on the bottom. This final dish is served with crispy toast sticks, salt, and pepper, a breakfast that could kill the weaker ones. He admits that this amount of calories is practically a war crime, but asks everyone not to worry. Because he is a traveler, he can drink a health potion in one gulp and nullify all fat problems. Then he tells the viewers, you can eat like this too, just every day you have to fight monsters. He explains that for adventurers, both men and women, eating competitions have turned into an almost national sport. He says, like in Minecraft, you endlessly gather resources in a ruthless world, so you have to eat. Delicious food is the only thing that keeps your sanity indicator afloat and prevents it from falling to zero, and zero is already his death. When you find yourself in a life-and-death battle with a monster, the body seems to start storing energy by itself. Then Barton decisively shatters the widespread myth about researchers like him. Look, athletes are constrained by rules, weight categories, and a bunch of physical limitations. But for an adventurer, it's real chaos. Literally everything is allowed here. They grab any weapon, push their bodies to insane limits, and just endure. Because of this, their bodies obey only one thing: to survive at any cost. So his idea of health sounds on a completely different wavelength than that of an ordinary person. He seems to encourage the chat, don't worry, you're not eating it, and they simply reply, well, all right. After biology class, he grabs a knife, finally ready to sink his teeth into his masterpiece. He dips a piece of toast directly into the huge golden yolk, and the chat explodes with delight. The first bite is pure bliss. He is simply thrilled by how incredibly tasty it is. The taste of the yolk is so rich and concentrated that it becomes a full-fledged dish on its own. In fact, the taste of the yolk is so powerful that it completely drowns out the margarine, which lounges on its throne like a king. And suddenly a sharp bite of black pepper bursts in, adding another layer to this culinary chaos. Here is the climax. He places the whole egg on a piece of toast and eagerly prepares to make a sandwich. He bites off a huge piece, wildly enjoying the crispy toast and the rich runny yolk, the perfect combination. Even the egg white is perfectly cooked crispy, soaked with that incredibly tasty margarine flavor that seems to clog the arteries. He insists this is by no means a dessert, it is a full-fledged, hearty, and spicy dish in itself. He says it is like the concentrated taste of dozens of eggs, merged into one perfect yolk. Our guy is fully immersed in this moment, savoring every bite. He barely kept everything under control only thanks to the natural flavor, and now it's time for phase 2. Pulling out a bottle of soy sauce, he is ready to give the sauce faction their moment of glory. With a huge smile, he exclaims that it's time to change the flavor and simply pours the egg to the top. The soy sauce slowly drips and gathers right in the center of that wonderful liquid yolk. He raises this new creation as if it were a masterpiece. Saltiness and rich flavor combined perfectly. The second wave of flavor hits with such force that his brain seems to melt from pure bliss. His chat grumbles. He is so deep in a religious experience that he cannot properly comment on the food. Meanwhile, a quiet girl with braids suddenly remembers. Botton's premium video finally comes out today. She opens his channel, her heart pounding, about to click on the dungeon vlog, and the joint viewing stream will begin. Suddenly, a loading screen appeared with the message, waiting for no one else, Hanabi must join the team. And instantly, Hanabi explodes on the screen, her signature energetic intro. She smiles and confirms that today, as promised, the big joint viewing everyone has been waiting for will finally take place. Her stream is packed over 21,000 viewers from all over the world, and everyone is going crazy in anticipation of the vlog. Hanabi lightly salutes and admits she is a little scared of how little she actually knows about life in the dungeon. Settling in, she explains, Bot himself asked for this, but she has no idea what they are about to see. She thinks this is the best way to tame that wild and unpredictable attention that is pouring onto him. Because only a connection with the botanist and your stats instantly skyrocket, and he already has over 25 million subscribers. The chat immediately attacked Botan, saying he arranged all this just for the views. But the girl with braids just stares gloomily ahead, let the haters say whatever they want. It turned out she had no choice. A colleague asked and she couldn't say no. She knows she is just a fox holding back the power of a tiger, and she is the first to admit it. In fact, she is preparing for the fire war, a clenched fist, and in her eyes smolders the anticipation of inevitable chaos. She is going to stand firm against all that storm of hatred and turn the huge Botan audience into her fans. She raised a finger to explain the basic rules of joint viewing. She calls everyone, open the vlog on your screens, she can't stream it again herself. And then she sees that there are over 50,000 people in Botan's waiting hall and starts to panic wildly. A 1-minute countdown lights up on the screen, and the tension is simply palpable in the air. His stream starts with a warning about intense footage, and it is surprisingly professional. Next appears a cute retro loading screen, as if straight from an old RPG. Finally, the vlog begins. A shot of a hand in the sand, and Barton asks himself in surprise if he is recording. He casually says a calm good evening to his premium viewers, as if it's just another Tuesday. And then he drops a bomb, says he is on a tropical beach inside a dungeon, and Pigtail's mind just exploded. Our guy decided that standing is boring, so without hesitation he headed to the water to finally get down to business. He suddenly waved his hand towards the ocean and everyone froze, confused, not understanding his plan. And then he parts the entire Sea of Frickin' like a modern Moses and exposes the ocean floor. This pulls a genuine scream from the girl with pigtails. She simply cannot comprehend what she is seeing. Her chat simultaneously explodes a mixture of sincere worship and absolute frantic astonishment. Pigtails continuously repeats no no no, her brain completely fried from what she just saw. She desperately tries to convince herself that this is just incredible CGI, it can't be real, right? Meanwhile, Hanabi shivers from a sudden, eerie feeling of deja vu, as if she has already experienced this. Another girl also looks on in horror, only now she realizes how massive this event was. It reminds her of watching disaster videos on the internet, a feeling of absolute, overwhelming power. In the video blog, the sea that had parted thunderously closed and Barton announced, "The war has officially begun." Then he turns to the camera with a cold smirk, and as if indifferent, says that there is an enemy here who came to kill you. Pigtails instantly became alert, completely stunned by the casually thrown statement about danger. The ocean itself seems to swell and bubble, rising into a massive, unnatural hill. And suddenly, from the depths bursts a colossal monster, a gigantic aquatic sea slug. Our heroine is now shouting at her monitor, angrily insisting that all this physics is impossible and demands that he look at reality. The cute Chibai jumps onto the screen and, of course, quickly explains today's objective. He introduces Yumi Furashi, a giant astral monster made of seawater, actually a sea slug the size of a kaiju. She is nearly losing her mind at how casually he explains everything, while Botan just smiles as if he knows all the answers. Two huge walls of water now hold the giant slug in the air, as if pinching it between them. Chibabot. Button explains that he is literally summoning rain from the ocean, and Pigtails just yells at him, "Get to the point already." Defeated, she hangs over the table and whispers that even her simple brain now understands what is happening. It dawns on her, if a monster of such size falls from the sky, the impact will destroy everything around. But Botan just smiles slyly and announces the beginning of taming the giant monster, as if it were a simple game. He takes one measured step forward on the bare seabed, ready to start the fight. Botan throws out his plan. The first option is to run because one hit means instant death. But the usual response is useless. He chooses the second option and parts the sea again. With a wild smile, he rushes straight to that watery abyss he created himself. Then he does a crazy backflip right over what suspiciously looks like a sea mine at the bottom of the ocean. Pigtails shouts into her monitor. She simply cannot comprehend his absurd logic. This giant snail monster now just sits at the bottom of the sea, as if in complete shock. Like a true supervillain, Botan summons several energy spheres and defiantly invites the kaiju to play. He is literally rushing over the water now, dodging lightning bolts, while Pigtails stands and just watches him die. She howled again. Botan slammed his fist into the ground with incredible force. And suddenly the video sharply changes. He appears in luxurious attire and cheerfully says goodbye. That's all for today. And then he, as if it's the norm, brazenly asks everyone to like and subscribe if they enjoyed that chaos. Two tiny chibi versions of him wave goodbye, and the chat just goes crazy over this cliffhanger. Pigtail sits as if lost the gift of speech, staring at the screen completely stunned after this crazy, feverish vlog. Finally, she can't stand it and explodes, calling the bot a complete idiot because of his overconfident farewell at the end. Meanwhile, another streamer plops into a chair, and in shock can't comprehend what he just released into the world. Hands hover over the keyboard. He understands. This content is too intense for a regular stream. The last chaotic shot, Barton stands in the middle of a sea of flames making peace signs. Somewhere else, other girls are frozen in complete shock. They felt that this video would cause a real uproar. Suddenly, a newcomer appears, a blonde girl, who shouts that from now on she places all her faith in the bot. At that very moment, her eyes flashed with a new, slightly frightening devotion. The Botan vlog officially broke the internet, and instantly clipped channels and self-proclaimed adventurers sprang up everywhere. Hanabi simply goes crazy and screams his name when she realizes this has turned into a global political incident. During a call, she angrily scolds him for sending those crazy shots into her stream, and he just stretches. He doesn't care. Meanwhile, another girl tells him that this video simply shocked her, and a little warning wouldn't have hurt. He leaned back and said, her sincere reaction, the one when it feels like the soul is leaving the body, was exactly for this, so no spoilers. He says it simply and plainly. Dungeons have become routine, but the adventurer's work still remains a deadly battle with monsters. His logic for choosing kaiju was simple. He is from the water, so there will be no blood, and Hanabi just boils over from his reasoning. Botan frankly admits, he is not here by accident. He truly is insanely enjoying all of this. He finds it terribly funny to watch how newcomers react to a real dungeon. Hanabi only declared, "You have a terrible character." But this is not the only reason. It is precisely because of this that Hanabi is completely confused about his motives. His face changes for a moment, seriousness covers him, and he pushes this thought aside for later. His followers suddenly exceeded 21 million, and with such numbers came huge problems. The first problem: anti-fans and crowds of hatred have officially awakened and launched an attack. And the second, which is even more troubling, his audience has radically changed. After that crazy video, most people immediately became his new followers. They craved even more adventures from him. After all, he is primarily a VTuber, so he will continue to play games and hold his usual streams. He felt it to the bone. New viewers didn't care at all about his relaxed cooking streams and random chats. Here's the real catch. Half of this huge new audience is from abroad, and that's a completely different story. You can't just brush off a huge international fan base. That won't work. Because once you deal with an international audience, everything can instantly get terribly complicated. The language barrier is a real disaster. In chat streams, his international audience gets completely lost. His team just looks at the keyboard, holding their breath, waiting for chaos to break out any moment. In his chat, a multilingual wave of people was raging, all demanding one thing in unison: more dungeon talks. But Button rushes to explain. He is not ignoring them at all. He simply, literally, cannot respond in foreign languages. Usually, the VTuber catches comments on the fly and improvises to keep the stream alive and engaging, but now international viewers simply drown out his native Japanese fan base. And now he approaches problem number 3. Doing collabs at his level turns out to be incredibly difficult. Because he has so many subscribers, it's not just a big number for a VTuber, it's top level even among all creators in the country. He can no longer just take random collaboration requests from newbies. It will turn into complete chaos. And instead, proposals are piling on him from everywhere, and he finds himself in an incredibly awkward predicament. This guy has actually become unreachable. He is now a god-level creator, too big to hang out with. He grandiosely proclaims his magnificent decision. He is launching a completely new sub-channel to fix everything. His chat immediately goes crazy, imagining that something terrible has happened or that he is deleting his main channel. He says the sub-channel will become the home for all his usual VTuber content, games, cooking, and collabs. Meanwhile, the main channel has officially turned into the home for all his crazy dungeon vlogs. Having dealt with that, he finally gets down to the most important thing: announcing his new content strategy. He says it plainly, without embellishment. Now he is at the very top of the VTuber food chain. His newly created sub-channel has already gained 3 million subscribers, so this whole "I'm a newbie" act is officially over. Under such attention, he himself admits, now it is clear he is truly an important person. Tired of waiting, from now on, he himself will write to people and offer collabs. He has already received the green light from several streamers. They are ready to launch his new era, full of collabs with it. With a self-satisfied smile, Botan threw to everyone, "Follow my social media, announcements will be there soon." Somewhere else, lit by the pale light of a screen, someone is watching a stream announcement from his sub-channel on their phone. The new guy in a fancy vest read the news and immediately exclaimed, "This is a declaration of war." And at that moment, his rival appeared. The stage is set and the moment for a new conflict is simply perfect. Suddenly, we switch to Botan's cooking stream. He beams with a smile and sincerely welcomes everyone to his sub-channel. He proudly shows off a brand new kitchen. It turns out, he bought it spontaneously right after the previous shoot in the studio. And he literally snatched his first guest from the office, kidnapped Hanabi, and shoved her into a cage, all for the sake of an unexpected joint project. Another girl from the watch party froze in place, completely confused, looking at her colleague in the prison cell. Botan just gave a thumbs up and coldly explained that he can't let her escape while he is cooking. What a psycho. Then he pulls out the main ingredient of his recipe, a giant, creepy limb. Hanabi's face seemed to melt. Pure, uncontrollable horror gripped her at the sight of the monster's parts. She is so disgusted that she cannot watch and instinctively covers the view with her hand. Later, she is forced to taste the final product, while Botan calmly checks his equipment, not worrying at all. Next, a collab with a wildly energetic host who shouts at her audience at the top of her voice, "Burn this." Other streamers are mesmerized by his voice, and he immediately asks if they want him to promote them. A wave of black feathers cuts across the screen, a sign that the pace is changing. Under the moonlight, the traditional building looms ominously, and somewhere nearby someone whispers, "This cannot be." Now he is in a collab with Mahjong. Next to him is a winged guy and a dude in military uniform. This winged guy asks what he has planned with all these collabs, and Botan just chuckles and says that Asterisk still has a bad temper. Botan calmly places a tile in Mahjong and, as if nothing happened, says that he did not win this combination. usually. The winged guy thoughtfully considers how he will finally achieve his long-standing goals, and that dude in dark glasses just smiles and says that he is a passionate fan of this unstoppable ambition. Three of them were just relaxing on the balcony, unexpectedly getting deep into conversation in the middle of the game, but their fourth player, that soldier, suddenly turns off the screen. It goes dark. His teammates immediately started mocking him. He not only got kicked out but also muted himself. Finally, he reconnects, panic in his voice. He shouts that his turn timer is about to run out. And just at the right moment, the timer hits 0 and the game automatically moves the piece for him. Oh no. These two immediately declare themselves winners, taking advantage of his mistake, while the poor guy just loses his mind. A friend just yells at him asking, "Why did you throw away that winning tile?" But when that winged guy says that a true hunter must be gentle with his prey, he becomes truly terrifying. Returning to the present, Botan enthusiastically emphasizes his new strategy: more collabs more often. The plan is ready. He is about to launch the next stage of his career. He is already bustling, filled with impatience, preparing to meet streamer Sakai Jin for a future collab. The first step: grab the backpack and go hunting for ingredients to throw a real welcome party. Suddenly memories flash in his mind: a dark cave, from which a distant scream echoes. We see the younger Botan in his eyes warm memories of that first adventurer, whom he once looked up to. This memory is about a lone fighter who stood one-on-one against a huge, terrifying monster resembling a dragon. And that traveler turned out to be none other than Sakai Jin himself, in the year of his legendary debut.